hang tight. Just do some updates here. All right. Okay, we are live. Let me just do a couple quick edits. And we're going to get going here. All right, so hang tight. All right. Give everybody a few minutes. Let me just do some quick editing here. All right. All right. All right, we are good to go. All right, let's come back in here. All right, we are live on all the platforms. All right, Frontal Blessings. I'll run through a couple quick announcements, give everybody a few more minutes to get here. I had a little bit of time tonight, so I figure I'd come on here. Also, make people aware of the September events for Patreon. All right, just let that run down. All right, so before I begin, let's just run through the announcements real quick for a few minutes. Hold on one sec. All right, first and foremost, obviously, one of the key thing we're focusing on here right now is the 7th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference. I know you've been hearing me talk about it all the time on all the posts. That'll take place October 31st to November 3rd. Kicks off on Halloween night. We're doing something a little different this year. We're going to open it up with a ritual at the graveyard, followed by a coffee and donut social afterwards, just to get everybody acclimated, which we do that every year. But we're doing something a little different on the opening night. And then on Friday and Saturday, from 9 to 4 p.m., there'll be classes, presentations, workshops. We've added some extra rituals this year, so it'll be more hands-on work. As the years go on, we're leaning more towards that. We want to make sure that's the critical thing, the work, right? We want to make sure that that's included, because this is about doing the work. It's not just about talking. I think we do enough of that in the classes. So 9 to 4, that takes place during the day on Friday and Saturday, followed by a group ritual both nights, Friday and Saturday evening, followed by a group dinner. And then on Sunday, I do from noon to 4 p.m., I will be doing a question and answer class. You can sign up for that to attend either live and in person. or you can attend virtually. You just don't get access to the rituals when you attend virtually, but you get access to all the classes and the workshops. All right, so you can shoot me an email, and in the email, just include in there, be clear what you are inquiring about to attend live or in person. If you need any further information about the conference, just put that in your email. And the email is going right on the bottom of the screen, as you see on the ticker there. So you can sign up for that right now, 7th Annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference. All right. Also, if you're interested in a reading or a consultation, as you know, I offer various different types of readings. Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, Clepothic demonic readings. Sorry, I'm just looking at something here. Shadow work readings, which I said is always a great reading to do if you're looking for a purpose, sense of direction. Shadow work reading is the way to go. Deity readings to see what gods, goddesses, demons, and spirits walk with you. Or maybe you're just interested in a spiritual consultation, just shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com. It's right on the bottom of the screen. Please include in your email, very important, no matter how many times I say this, to some people, they just don't hear it. Please include a full weekly availability that you're available. Please do not email me, I want a reading Thursday at 3 o'clock. It doesn't work like that. I wish it did, and I wish it was that simple, but it's not. So when you email me and you're requesting a reading or a consultation, please put your full weekly availability and the time zone you're in. People always forget to put their time zone. I don't know if you're Eastern Standard Time, which I am. I don't know if you're Central, Mountain, Pacific, or I don't know if you're out of the country. You might be in a whole different time zone. I literally get emails. I would like a reading Thursday at 4 o'clock. First of all, I don't know what time zone that is, number one. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. So when I have a full weekly availability, I can look at your schedule and see what's open. And then I can shoot you some dates and times that works for you. That's how it works. It's just, you got to remember, I'm dealing with a bunch of people constantly. It's just doesn't work like that. All right. So if you're interested, reach out to me for an email. If you want to sign up for classes, and I'm going to run through the classes for this month, the way to sign up for the classes that I do, hold on one second. All right. Yes. So the way to sign up for the classes is to go to the official Patreon page for Primordial Chaos, which is patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, and tier 3. That's the tier you want to join. And that gives you access to all of the classes that I do every month on Patreon, which is 3. And that includes the group ritual we do at the end of the month. And keep in mind, when you join, you don't just get access from the day you join moving forward. You also get access to everything in the archives, which is going literally almost 5 years back now. All right. And you also get access to all that classwork. If you want to see all the classes that are ongoing right now, and I'm getting ready to add 2 new ones, just go to the Patreon page again, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, tier 3. And hit the collection section, and you'll see everything, all the classes that are ongoing right now, and they're all in numerical order, and you'll see how many is in each one, with constant classes being added every month. All right, so check that out. That's the way. That's the number one email I get all the time. What kind of classes do you do? How can I sign up for your classes? That's how you sign up for the classes. All right, so check that out. Information's right on the bottom of the ticker, patreon.com/Baniti. And this month, we do have September's classes posted. So let me just run through that real quick. And it begins tomorrow, 3:30 p.m., Necromancy and Dark Witchcraft class. That's number 7. This will be our 7th class. And this is one of the newer classes we've added. Sith, Dark Side, Alchemy, and Philosophy class. That'll take place on Thursday, September 12th at 8 p.m. That's class number 9. And then Thursday, September 19th, we will be doing Left Hand Path, Norse Mythology and Runes, class number 7. That will take place at 8 p.m. on Thursday, September 19th. And then our ritual for this month on Patreon on Thursday, September 26th at 8:15 p.m. These are all Eastern Standard Times. The ritual of Kozar, Lord of the Deep. Okay. This is the work. This is the classes and the ritual for this month. So if you're interested in participating, go to patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, tier 3. All right. Also, don't forget to check out all the social media platforms, which we're live right now on Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9, all one word. Also, check out the Facebook page, Primordial Chaos 2 words. We're also live on that right now. And then obviously right here on YouTube, Primordial Chaos 2 words, and also on Instagram, primordialchaos3.com on TikTok. I'm sorry. That's the TikTok handle. All right. That's the best way to stay abreast of what's going on, what we're doing, etc., and things of that nature. And then don't forget to check out the Primordial Chaos podcast, available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. All right. All of that information is, some of it's going on the bottom of the ticket. All of it's in the description box of this video. Don't forget to hit the like buttons, so spread this algorithm, and we can get this information out. All right, because as you know, YouTube really controls that algorithm the last couple of years. But anyway, it is what it is. And by the way, they removed one of my videos again today. Seems like they're finding any videos going back talking about COVID, which I'm not going to even discuss any of that stuff anymore, because apparently they keep banging me for talking against certain things that are approved by the medical community. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to even discuss that. But that's how it is now. You know, you have to be real careful what you say. And I didn't say anything wrong. I was just being open. But it is what it is. They've become pretty strict the last few years. And it's just funny how they word it, talking about that it goes against approved, things that they're claiming are approved, you know. But anyway, we'll leave that at that. I don't even want to get into that. So certain things I won't discuss. That's why it's great to join the Patreon page, because with the Patreon page, in a private setting, I don't have to be restrictive as what I talk about. So I try to keep things kind of straight to the point here on YouTube without going into anything that might be controversial or messy, because that's what's going on this platform the last couple of years. All right. So what I wanted to talk about for the time that I'll be here, you see the title, Egyptian Cosmic Consciousness and the Animated Universe. This is from the Egyptian concept of this is going to help you understand magic, right? And one of the things we were talking about in the Black Magic Essentials 101, which, by the way, I'm still teeter-tottering with a date. I know some of you reached out for when is the second class going to be. Just be patient. I'm working some things in the schedule. There's just a lot going on. And plus, we have the conference next month. We have we just set up another hip hop occult show that we'll be doing with Taja and Dis One. I got the Patreon, so I'm trying to squeeze that in somewhere. And I have an idea of 2 dates I'm teetering with in October. This month isn't going to work, so I'm teetering maybe before the conference, or right, or possibly the latest right after it. But it's looking like somewhere in the middle of October is what I'm looking at right now. So just be patient. But I got to make sure the date works. All right. So I haven't forgotten about that. I know some of you guys reached out to me and emailed that you're waiting for the second one. I will. I also received from emails. Is that Egyptian, Black Magic Essentials 101 class going to be available if you wanted to purchase it? Yes. I have to make a post for that. It's not available on Patreon. It wasn't a Patreon event. It was just for people who signed up with it. And when you do sign up for the class, you do receive a copy of it. So everybody that was in that class. So when you sign up for those private classes, you also get a copy of the class. So those people have a copy. They don't have to purchase anything. By them purchasing and attending the class, you also get a copy. So you can purchase it for the same amount that people who attended the class. I'm probably going to put it up for about $50. And if you want to purchase it, it's about 4 hours. It's a pretty long class, and I didn't even get to everything. And if you guys know, back in the day before I was on Patreon and I was just doing classes via Zoom, Some of them classes were 5, 6, 7 hours. I mean, they were long. So I kind of cut that back because though there was so much I wanted to discuss and get out, I felt it was kind of a two-edged sword. I felt sometimes by cramming so much, I know people want it, and I know people will stay in the class, but it just became clear to me that by just over cramming shit, sometimes for some people it can work. Some people, they like that. But I have to remember when we have a class as a whole, we have to consider everybody in the class. We just can't consider 1, 2, 3, or 4 people, because I know some people are built for that. Some people can take in 6, 7 hours worth of information and they can flow with it, but some people can't. And that can be more damaging. So that's why I kind of cut back on that. I don't really do that too much anymore. Not to say it will never be done again. It have to be the right setting. But it's important that people are absorbing the information, assimilating it, because if you're just spitting a bunch of information and pounding people upside the head with it, it's pointless. And if it's not sinking in. So I will get a date for that. Just be patient with me. Next Friday, we have set the date for the Hip Hop Occult show. Just one, and Brother Taja will be back. We got a great show prepared for that. I will be posting the promo for that. I do have the promo. It was sent to me late last night. And we will be talking about the OGC Clique, Original Gun Clappers, Black Moon, the legacy of Sean P, aka Sean Price, which they have left a strong imprint on the hip hop culture and the hip hop community. So if that's your thing, you definitely don't want to miss that. Next Friday night, we'll be on live doing that. But anyway, let's get into it. Egyptian cosmic consciousness and the animated universe. This will help you understand magic, because thought forms, tapping into your subjective universe, the ability to visualize is the ability to create. And as I've said to you guys a million times before, magic is the ability and the power of how deep you can tap in to the inner depths of your subconscious mind. This is why we do telepathic work. This is why we go into the void and the abyss. This is why we work with primordial chaotic energy via Leviathan and the primordial gods and goddesses. The purpose of doing that is, as I said I was on live a couple of nights ago, or whatever night that was, a few nights back, not too long ago. It's about being able to tap in to that ability to create via your imagination. Now, there's a lot of trickery and fuckery in those words, because, right, people will use that term against you sometime. Oh, you got a vivid or a wild imagination, right? If you think of something or something that sounds or appears crazy to something or somebody, they'll say you have a wild imagination, like, oh, that's bullshit, or that's fairy tale. I told you, understand the root words of some of these words in the English language that we use. And as I said, imagination also is linked to the word to imagine and the word images, right? So you conjure up images by using your imagination. And in order to use your imagination, you have to use the power of your mind, which creates thought forms, right? So there's a concept that we talk about in magic called about using thought forms to create servitors, right? They know you have the ability through the power of your subconscious mind to create. Well, in the ancient Egyptian concept of creation and the animated universe, we're going to get into a little bit of that tonight with the void, the abyss, the chaotic waters of Nun. Through the ancient Egyptian concept, it's right there laid out for us, okay? That's kind of why I chose to kind of run through this tonight, because I keep trying to tell people, right, one of the most foundational aspects to understanding how what we call magic works is the ability to reprogram the subconscious mind, right? Reprogram it from all the bullshit that been indoctrinated in it, because this goes beyond just getting a book that might have some spells and invocations and rituals in, and this, that, or the other, and carrying those out. That's what I call an armchair or a book magician, right? And I want to be clear, as I said before, the books are the guidelines and the roadmap to you creating your path to self-mastery. So I'm not saying at all, I want people to misinterpret. Not saying not to read books and don't use books. That's impossible. How are you going to study? How are you going to learn? How are you going to do your research? I collect books. I mean, I've lost count. I can probably have thousands of books. Literally, that's no exaggeration. But the between digital now and hard copy, we all probably have 1,000 or 2,000 or more books access at our disposal now. Where that wasn't like that years back. You just had to have hard copies. But my point of what I'm trying to get at is the book shouldn't be ruling or guiding you, right? You should be ruling or guiding yourself, and the information that you extract from a book or resource or an elder or a teacher or a guide, right, should be used as a helpful tool for you to create your path to self-mastery. We're not followers on this path. The problem is a lot of people still want to follow shit. They want to belong to groups, cliques, organizations. What is that? Sorry. Rather than put in that work, not all, I'm saying who this applies to, rather than put in that work, effort, and energy. Hold on. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. Had to step away for a minute. So yeah, like I was saying, this is about you figuring out how you want to lay your path of self-mastery, right? This is not about following anything or anybody. That's the whole point. So as I was saying, understanding how that aspect of your subconscious mind works is going to determine how well you're effectively able to carry out magic and rituals. And I keep stressing the power of you being able to visualize, right? Now, we struggle to visualize because remember, uh, the pineal gland, as we talk about a lot, when it's functioning correctly, is critical and key for having the ability to create what we call uh, the right amount of DMT that needs to be created for you to have your experiences. So as we talked about, when it's calcified, you don't have the ability to do that, right? And this is why some people might struggle. It's hard for them to focus. It's hard for them to concentrate. People will talk about, oh, it's hard for me to meditate. I can't focus. Or if I try to carry out a visualization technique, it doesn't work. So that's where you have to kind of go and start, but understanding how the mind works and how things are brought into existence, right? It's critical and key because when you're working, and we focused on a lot of this in the Black Magic Essentials 101, when you understand the process of how Black magic works on its higher forms and levels, it's about formulating it and creating it in your subjective consciousness or your subjective universes / multiverses and bringing it into your objective universe. That's the process. But understanding the steps and the keys on how to do that is where the work comes in, right? So let's talk about this a little. Let me run through a couple of things I want to run through here. And this is coming from a book. There's Egyptian Cosmology and the Animated Universe, the 3rd edition by Muhammad Gadala. I've mentioned him before. He is a good resource, in my opinion. He's put out a lot of books over the years. He is also an archaeologist. He's a scholar. He has a PhD in these studies. He's from ancient Egypt, so he lives over there, and he's devoted his life to the research and study of Egyptian culture. So he's one of many out there, in my opinion. When you're looking for unfiltered aspects of the studies of ancient Egypt, he's a good resource to go to. All right. All right. So what did I do with that? All right. So it says the excellent condition of the Egyptians was attributed to their application of metaphysical realities in their daily lives. So when we're saying the term metaphysical, what are we saying? It's just a Greek word for beyond the physical, right? So it's important that we have a basic understanding of the etymology of a lot of the words in the English language. Why? Why do I keep saying that? Well, if you understand that the English is the youngest language on the planet Earth, and if you just get a dictionary, you will see every word in the English language is from a language that preceded it. And this is why it could be from Greek, it could be from German, French, Arabic, you name it, Spanish. Every language predates what we're calling modern day English, right? So when we're saying metaphysical, we're just saying beyond the physical, right? In other words, total cosmic consciousness. The scenes of daily activity depicted on the walls inside the Egyptian tombs shows a strong perpetual correlation between the earth and the heavens, right? And we'll talk about that. The scenes provide graphical representation of all manner of activities, hunting, fishing, agriculture, law, courts, all kinds of arts and crafts, portraying these daily activities in the presence of the Natiru, the gods and the goddesses, or with their assistance signifies their cosmic correspondence, right? And as we know, one of the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti is what? The doctrine of correspondence. The most religious ancient Egypt never, either in the hundreds found papyri or other writing surfaces, refers to human being as a discoverer or as an inventor. The divine is and was the source of all their existence. The divine is the origin of all that exists, and it is through the divine forces that the universe was created and is being maintained. It is therefore that all aspects of knowledge in ancient Egypt are credited to the attributes, the aspects, and the quality of the divine, namely the Neteru, the gods and the goddesses. Nothing? The perpetual correlation, cosmic consciousness, was echoed in many of the Hermetic texts. All right. Every action, no matter how mundane, was in some sense a cosmic correspondence act. Plowing, sowing, reaping, brewing. The signs, beer mugs, building ship, waging wars, playing games were all viewed as earthly symbols for the divine activity. All right. So now let's talk about the unity and the multiplicity of the universe, where this is going to get a little bit more into the choruses. The word cosmology is a Greek word. So the word cosmology means study of the universe. You also hear the term cosmos when referring to the universe in Greek. As a whole and its form, nature, and physical system. We find the essence of the word cosmology in the ancient Egyptian litany of Re, where Re, the divine principle of creation, is described as the one joined together, who comes out of his own members. The ancient Egyptian definition of Re is the perfect representation of the unity that compromises the putting together of the many diverse entities, the one who is the all. The litany of Re describes the aspects of the creative principle being recognized as the Neteru, or the Neteru, the gods and goddesses, whose actions and interactions in turn created the universe. So we're dealing with principles, we're dealing with concepts. This is why when you look at the Neteru, they all represent an aspect of these principles of creation, right? Forming what we're calling, quote unquote, creation, right? So it's deeper than just poof, there was some mystical God in the clouds and poof, he snapped his fingers and poof, everything just appeared, right? We know that's a bunch of bullshit. But unfortunately, in this day and time, we still have people who believe those fairy tales, all right? Let us look at the word religion, which had its original meaning twisted. The root of the word religion it's a Latin word, religio, which means to bind or tie together, which again is consistent with the definition of Re in the Egyptian text, right? So they took that concept of what, unfortunately, religion and what it's become today, it's become more of an established system or concept that men use mostly to control individuals, right? So when you're binding or tying something together or you're conjoining something, you're trying to bring everything into union, right? To get a greater understanding. And basically, this is what was being done when you're looking at the animated universe and how it was described and broken down in the ancient Egyptian text. It's more in alignment with, as I said, one thing on our path, it's a spiritual science, right? So it's more in alignment of what we do spiritually, and it removes a lot of the spookism because you're dealing with aspects that kind of remove that, again, concept of a poof, snap my finger and everything appeared, when literally the Bible don't even say that. Because the way they present it on a whole in monotheistic religion, mainly Christianity, which obviously is Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, they make it sound like it just poof, it appeared. When if you really thoroughly read the Bible, that's not the case. Why did it take 7 days? Why 7 days of creation? Does anybody ever question that? Or is there some esoterical symbol in that number 7, which yes, there is. 7 days of creation, 7 days in the week, right? Was this done for a particular reason? And then why did God have to rest on the 7th day? That makes no sense. So does God get physically tired like we do as human beings? It said on the 7th day he rested. And I heard people interpret that many. Well, what that means, brother, it's spiritual. And that's your interpretation. God could never rest according to religious theology because existence would cease to exist. It makes no fucking sense. If God took his attention off of creation for one inkling of an eye, existence would cease to exist. I'm saying that according to religious theology. That would be literally impossible for God to rest. It goes against every foundation of your concept in religious theology that God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. So think about if he rested for one moment, he wouldn't be any of those three things. First of all, they can't even prove it's a he. That's going into a whole nother story. Okay. So I'm saying when you're looking at both of these concepts, and when you go into, and we haven't even, we're going to get into it more, you're going to see this is more in alignment with us understanding of what existence is, what cyclical time is. It removes the traps of linear time. It removes the spookism of a beginning. When you deal with cyclical time, you're dealing with cycles. And you may not understand the concept. Existence is just that, to be, to exist. Existence is that. It's always been here. Now, you may not understand that. It may not make no sense. And it might sound like a bunch of mumble jumble, but you will never understand that from a three-dimensional perspective of being confined to person, place, or thing. Most people who vibrate, who are low vibrational frequency beings and vibrate at a low spiritual frequency, are governed by person, place, or thing. You will never understand it from that perspective because you're always trying to put a beginning on something or the point of origin on something. And that's the human mind and the human frailty of our mortality, because that makes us feel comfortable when we can put it within a system of confinement of a beginning and an end, right? Because that makes humans feel comfortable. But to comprehend something beyond that, your mind goes batshit crazy because you can't. Not from a three-dimensional perspective or understanding. So it's easy to feed three-dimensional beings fairy tale stories like in the beginning, right? And poof, there's just this God appears out of nowhere in Genesis. They don't tell you how it got there. They don't tell you where it came from. They don't tell you where it was formed. You're just supposed to believe there's this spooky force that just manifested, and then you read the rest of the story. It's comical, okay? It's fairy tales. It's mythology, okay? But when there's individuals like us who are real seekers of knowledge and we're on that path of self-mastery, we want more clarity on this stuff, right? That's not good enough for us anymore, all right? So let's go into Amun-Re-Nefer, the undefined. The deeply religious Egyptians, recognizing that no human being can define the indefinable, believed in the presence of an unlimited and unknowable power that is too majestic to communicate with the created universe, meaning beyond the physical, right? Because when you're dealing with the physical creation of what we call Earth, that's territory creation. That's physical creation, right? So they're dealing with something that goes beyond that. But without this power, no creation can exist. Outside the universe, now, when you're saying the word universe, again, another Greek word, uni is one. We know there's more than one universe, right? There's multiverses, okay? This thing is, when you're dealing with cyclical time, it's never ending, right? Outside the universe and its cyclical nature is what the ancient Egyptians referred to as Amun-Re-Nefer, which is not a name of any entity, right? But a sentence that means that with unknown essence. In this realm of the unknowable, no words in terms of human thought could be spoken, and the deeply religious Egyptians never did. So they can only be conveyed by the negation of all qualities. The Egyptians would say, whose name is unknown to all the Neteru? Who has no definition? Who has no image? Who has no form? Who has no beginning and no end? Etc., etc. This also ties you back to, and we're going to get into the chaotic waters of Nun, which is really the same thing when we talk about the chaotic waters and tapping back into Leviathan, primordial chaotic energy. And again, that word primordial has a root in the word prime. When something is prime, it is the original, right? So when you're dealing with prime creation or primordial chaotic energy, you're dealing with it at its root, right? Where all things manifest from, right? And this is where you get the concept out of chaos, right? Comes order, because chaos has to be first. See, we're programmed because if you don't understand it from an occult perspective, you hear the word chaos and you think that's something negative, right? Oh, it's chaos, chaos. When you hear it on mundane terms outside of the poor understanding, that's not the occult or the left-hand path, you're immediately stamped in your mind that chaos is something negative. No, chaos is only something negative when you can't make order or harmony out of it. When chaos is only negative when it devours you and it consumes you and it controls you. Because anything in its raw form is chaotic. Okay? You have to have chaos and darkness first before you can have light and intellect. That's the saying, what it means. One must go into the darkness to do the work of the light. You can't gain true knowledge by just being exclusively in a right-hand path philosophy or spiritual system where everything is light and love, and meditate everything away, pray everything away. Don't deal with the weaker access of yourself. Resist it, suppress it, don't give in to it. That's the wrong approach. Where our approach is the complete opposite through our shadow work and integrating the shadow and the hidden self. We want to embrace all aspects of our shadow, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's how one masters themselves, not by suppressing it. Because if you suppress or resist it, as I said a million times before, the more you resist, there's a stronger persistence. And guess what? The real you is going to manifest to the surface at some point. It doesn't matter what you do, right? You could sit here and hide behind any right-hand philosophy, spiritual system, and think you can just go hardcore heavy on your meditation and your affirmations and your prayers and love and light, and I love you, you love me, kumbaya, let's run through grass fields naked and hold hands and we're all going to be unified and it's all love. You're fooling yourself. Okay? You're fooling yourself. That's the bullshit they promote to us on the surface. We all must come together and unify, right? And the religions that promote it are responsible for all the chaos and destruction that's going on all across the world. Look at the root cause of it. Religion is there in some shape, form, or fashion. And these are the same people that tell you to subscribe to their religions because their religions is about peace and love. Their religions is about death, murder, violence, war, incest, rape, crime, bloodshed. Okay? And then they want to turn to other occult paths or other systems of consciousness and say that's blasphemous. Oh, that's demonic or that's evil. I'm seeing a lot of evil, what these so-called religious people describe evil being carried out by people who belong to their own religions. Tell me about that. How many times have you turned on the TV? Did you ever ask what all the crimes that are being committed in the world? Did you ever question those people's religious background? So are they responsible for that? Does it have something to do with their religion? How many crimes do you see? But when something is reported, say, if somebody's practicing an ATR, African traditional religious system, and they're using animal sacrifice, they'll be judged for that. Oh, that's demonic. That's evil. You shouldn't kill animals and sacrifice animals and slaughter animals. Well, first of all, understand in those systems, they're trained to do it in a way where the animal doesn't suffer. If you know about the culture, if you know about how the system works, most of those individuals, not most of them, all of them, have to go through a ritual of the knife, how to sacrifice animals correctly. Animal sacrifice is a rite that's being used, and here's the hypocritical thing. It's funny when a Christian or a biblical religious person will have the audacity to criticize on somebody who does that when all I read in the Old Testament is animal sacrifice and bloodshed and death. And I read about a God who enjoys the smell of the burning carcass of an animal on the altar. What the fuck are we dealing with here? Okay? You can't turn to somebody who has a spiritual practice where it incorporates animal sacrifice correctly, right? Because there's a science behind it, and then belong to a religion who's rooted in the slaughtering of animals. If you literally counted in the Bible how many animals were slaughtered, that's recorded there, it's in the millions, literally. Even when you read the book of Samuel's, the book of Judges, read about how many times one time where they come back from slaughter, they're told to sacrifice, I think it's like 100,000 oxen, a couple 100,000 oxen, which has to be literally fucking impossible. Do you know what a bloodbath that is if you had to sacrifice that many oxen? So is this real? Is this mythological? Is this symbolical? But one thing you can't deny, bloodshed and the killing of animals is all over the Bible. Okay? And then they'd even get it more sick and twisted. Well, Jesus' sacrifice replaced that. Now we're talking about drinking the body and blood of a dead man. And I told you guys before, it's vampiric in nature. They don't want to tell you that because, as I said to you guys before, The ritual of the Catholic Mass or any sect of Christianity that participates in communion, the drinking of the bread and wine, you are participating in a practice called transubstantiation. And all you got to do is go look into the Catechism of the Catholic Church. That's their whole teachings. It's a book that's available for anybody. And they believe during the ritual of the Mass that the bread and the wine is literally turned into the body and the blood of Jesus Christ. And they want you to believe that. And then if you look, when you line up for communion, if you were a Catholic and they do it in other sects of Christianity, they say the body of Christ, and you can take it. They want you to believe you are if this is not magic, visualization, they say the body of Christ. You say, no, it's just spiritual, it's symbolic. How is that not magic though? How is that not different of what we do? Right? And then they say the blood of Christ, and you drink the wine. You're participating in a vampiric ritual. You're drinking the body and blood, and they're trying to convince you subconsciously that literally is the body and blood of this character Christ. So how are we to determine that? Is that cannibalism? Is it spiritual cannibalism? What would we call that? But see, and then the slaughterment. So that's all okay. But when somebody's on the path of the occult or the left-hand path, you want to pass judgment. That's kind of hypocritical. Okay. If you really look at it, they're the ones that really belong to some sick, twisted cult, not people that practice the occult. All right. As such, the ancient Egyptian expression, Amun Renef, transcends even the quality of being. Amun Renef is not the creator of the first cause. All the terms God, creator, master of the universe, first cause, the first, are lower principles and separate from Amun Renef. See, once you try to put a timeline on God, that's where you kind of get yourself stuck like Chuck, where you'll get confused. All right? That's where it gets a little messed up. Okay? The Egyptians uttered no more of it, and then only under infinite reserve, appealing always to a deep sense beyond the words, that Amun Renef is everywhere in the sense that without its super existence, nothing could exist. Now, acknowledging Amun Renef with this principle, whose essence is unknown, we can enter the realms of creation cycles of which we are a part. So let me stop. There's a concept also in quantum and metaphysics called the all. So this is what it's essentially saying. And this is one methodology to explain it as we are trying to perceive it in a three-dimensional perspective of person, place, or thing, as three-dimensional beings at the moment, right? They have something called the all, right? All in all, right? If we look at the concept of the all, if the all in all and all things are connected, nothing could exist, what? Outside of all. So they come with the next concept in metaphysics with, if it did, where would you get it and where would you put it? How could it be all if something existed outside of all, right? You'll see symbols in Hermeticism sometimes of the square and the circle within the square, trying to convey this. The circle is a representation of us standing firm on the square. There's some masonry to that, right? That's why you'll hear the term some Mason brothers will say to each other, are you standing firm on your square, right? And then you see the circle within the square. And as I said before, the person that stands firm on their square, if you draw a circle within the square, the only person that knows where the circle begins and ends is the person who started to draw the circle. This is what it means when you represent what we call the El Cooked, the center of your universe. When you're standing firm in the center of your axis and everything evolves around you, you're the circle within the square. The square representing the all, quantum, the square, right? Which it goes beyond that. But I'm just trying to give you concepts from that you can grasp mentally in your head. So we're talking about the square and the circle within the square, okay? So that represents all within all. Now, you can't take anything from outside of that square, right? Because again, where would you get it and where would you put it? So the question is, where is it coming from? To even test this theory further, as crazy as this might sound, We could be here all night, literally. I'm going to pose a question to you. And I could start the clock right now, and we would be here forever. Think of one thing now in your mundane existence that doesn't fall under the category of person, place, or thing. One thing. Be careful now. Anything. Try to think of something that is not a person, place, or thing that doesn't fall in the category. Just about everything is going to fall in the category of thing. Persons, you know what's going to fall in that category. Places, you could think, well, you could think of something so bizarre, but I guarantee you it'll fall in alignment with a person, a place, or a thing. So in order for us to understand how creation in the universe works, we have to think outside of person, place, or thing. Now, the question is, how do we do that? By tapping into our subjective consciousness. We do that by, when we have the ability to have OBE, out-of-body experiences, when we have the ability to astral travel and leave our body and have those experiences. Because once you are out of your physical body, you are vibrating at a high spiritual frequency where you're not trapped in three-dimensional existence of person, place, and thing. Okay? So we need to understand that, because this is going to help us remove the spookism that we are inferior to some sky daddy, right? And this is what the ancient Egyptians were trying to show you, that it was just in cycles. And that's why the circle, right? If you're standing firm on your square and you're the sole ruler, the god or goddess of your universe, only you know where that circle begins. So to give you a further concept, if I told you to turn around and drew a circle, right? Only I know where the circle begins and ends. You wouldn't know that, because you're not in that. You're not in that. You're not in my universe or realm, or you're not in my domain, or you're not standing firm on my square, right? So the only person that would know, again, where that circle begins. Same thing. If you asked me to turn around and drew a circle and then made me turn around and say, where does that circle begin? This is why we all have multiverses. So the question is, are we all our own multiverse, living side by side with all these, I know it's going to sound crazy, with all these other multiverses? So is that not part of all? If I don't know where your circle or your existence or how you stand within your square begins, we have square upon square. You hear people say this in other systems, that we're all, what's the saying you hear people say in some of the conscious commercials, we're all stardust. And, you know, they dumb it down to try to give you an understanding of where they're going with it, because they don't really understand. I said this is going to sound even more bizarre. What if, or how if, or what if you didn't know? What if you're in somebody else's dream? That this whole thing that you think is your life and your reality is part of somebody else's dream. Can you truly, what are you looking for? Can you truly answer that question? I know you're going to say, no, I know. And maybe you do. How do you know that tomorrow you wake up and everything you experienced up until that tomorrow, what you think is tomorrow, was just not even a reality? You don't really know, if you be honest, if you just be real with yourself. Okay. You could sit here and your ego and your three-dimensional mortality will try to answer that question out of pride. But the reality is, you really can't answer that. How do you know what you're experiencing right now when I'm talking to you is just not some form of a vision or an illusion? How do you know you're not in my dream experiencing my reality? You don't know that. How? Maybe I'm in your dream experiencing your reality. Maybe I don't know that. Okay? But there's one way you can come to the conclusion of that. When you're developing your path to self-mastery and you're working your spiritual craft, you're going to get the answers to those questions when in your ritual work, you vibrate outside of person, place, or thing. That's the goal. It's the only way you're going to come to the clear understanding, overstanding, beyond the standing of it. Okay? And I like to say beyond the standing, because you don't want to understand, because that means you're beneath the standing or the clarity of it, right? There's many terms people have come with over the years with that. You've heard those terms over the years. I like to say beyond the standing, because that's our goal. I think all of that confines you to three-dimensional: person, place, thing, right? So we have to understand the principles of creation. And what I just went through were principles. That concept was a concept to help us understand how we can get our mind to transcend beyond person, place, and thing, three-dimensional existence. Let's continue. I'm going to get to your questions and stuff in the chat once I get through this. Now let's talk about the animated energies of the universe, right? See, this is the stuff people don't want to explore because this is work, this is study, this is research. So it's easier just to feed the masses a fairy tale. In the beginning, God has a British accent, by the way, as you notice in every religious movie. It's always a British accent, it's classical English, the whole nine, right? It's easy for fools just to believe, poof, let there be light. But like I said earlier, it wasn't just that, because it took 7 days, okay? And there's the esoterical occult. Look, like I said to you guys before, and that's why I do the esoterical occult Bible study class on the Patreon page. There's nothing wrong with the Bible when you understand it from its esoterical occult perspective. And it is an occult book because it comes from cultures, stories, histories, and characters that predate it. Okay. And when you understand the true breakdown of what the Bible is trying to say from a metaphysical and esoterical occult perspective, it takes on a whole different meaning. It becomes a problem when it's used by men to enforce systems of mental indoctrination and mental slavery. Now it becomes a problem, right? There's a lot of aspects. Like I told you guys before, I did video. Jesus was as left-hand path as you can get. The character Jesus. When you look at the character and the story of Jesus in the New Testament, that was a left-hand path dude. He was a rebel. He was anti the establishment. He went against everything of the norm. I don't see Christians doing that. I don't see Christians hanging out with derelicts, criminals, drug addicts, prostitutes, criminals. That's who Jesus went to. When they questioned him on that, he would come with slick answers like, does the physician go to the well, or does the physician go to those who are sick? That was his way of telling them, you religious hypocrites, you holy art thou beings who are so pious and holy, you don't need saving and salvation. These are the people that do. And if you look at who he used to roll with, prostitutes, vagabonds, criminals, lowlifes, and derelicts. I don't see Christians doing that on a wide scale level. I see them doing shit, most of them doing shit on the surface to be seen. It's all a show, okay? So that gets into another story. But let's talk about the animated energies of the universe in the pre-creation beginning. Before creation is a polite term. None or nothingness. Now, I've broken this down many times before over the years. In order to have something first, you must have nothing first. Now, there's a trick in the English language on them two words. You guys have heard me say this many times over the years. You take the word something, spelled S-O-M-E-T-H-I-N-G. Really, you break it down to something, S-U-M dash thing. See, they play games with the phonetics of the word something or the sum of a thing. In order to have the sum of a thing, you must have no thing first, N-O / thing, or they combine it, nothing. So you must have nothingness first to have something. Now, the Bible tells you that in the beginning, God's spirit roamed across the face of the waters, the void and the deep. And the void and the deep, or the abyss, is that state of nothingness, right? So it tells you that. You get into teachings such as the Nation of Islam, and in the lessons of the 120, where it talks about triple stage darkness, and most of them brothers can't really break down the 3 stages of darkness because they don't really know what that's referring to. It sounds deep, and there's an explanation for it. It's talking about the 3 forms of creation, right? I told you, territory creation, right? And it goes back when you get into the different states of the triple stages of darkness, which I've done classes on that. You guys heard me talk about it. That gets a little lengthy. But that first, what we're talking about here is going beyond that first stage of darkness, right? Territory creation. Territory or terror, you will find also the word T-E-R-R-A, you will see in some text, was one of the ancient names for this planet. Terror, right? This is where we get the word terrestrial. This is where we get the word, the ancient name for the word terror, which is referred to as earth in certain texts. There's a reason for that. Now, even when you look at the word extra, terra, astral, broken down in 3 words, extra, terra, and astral, right? So they're slick in the English language. They'll call aliens extraterrestrials. But technically, an extraterrestrial can be anything that comes from outside of Earth's or Terra's atmosphere. A meteorite can be an extraterrestrial, right? a craft that enters this from out could be an extraterrestrial, not just limited to beings. There's trickery in that because they want you to think when you hear the word extraterrestrial, you think of just big-headed aliens, right? There's trickery in that shit. And that's for a reason. That's to keep you focused on certain things so you won't see other things as you're looking into it deeper. Well, watch. Every Egyptian creation text begins with the same basic belief that before the beginning of things, there was a liquidy, primordial abyss everywhere, endless and without boundaries and directions. Now, when you're dealing with Nun and Nunette, that primal watery abyss was the womb of your mother, okay? That was home to you. I've told you guys this before. You lived in that dark watery abyss for how many months? The sacred number of 9. You swam, you were as a tadpole. And if you look how the fetus forms and as it takes shape and form, you go from a water aquatic being. And when you're literally birthed into this universe, I told you, when you look at our planet, okay, and you look at your body, the planet is roughly 67 or 70% water. So is your body. You're basically living in an aquarium and you don't know it because you need a certain level and combination of water and oxygen in order for you to survive. As I told you, if you stay submerged in water for a long period of time, start to look at your skin. Look at your fingers, look at your toes, look at your hands. They get all wrinkly and lizard-like, reptilian looking, okay? If you go back into ancient Egypt, Nun and Nunette are part of who they call the 8 Ogdoads. Who were the 8 Ogdoads? They were water beings. Look at the ziggurat step pyramids in Egypt. They were built to the Ogdoads, and there was 8. And each one was a male-female principle. And the Ogdoads go back before the Neteru because we're dealing with beyond earthly creation. Now, you're going through that same process, whether you understand it or not. Let's back up because, again, you lived in that dark, watery abyss for 9 months in the womb of your mother. Okay? Then you were merged into this realm as you came through her birth canal or vaginal canal, right? But the chaotic waters of Nun, which I'm about to get into here, is the science of when the male ejaculates into the female and all of those sperm are racing to get to the ovum of the woman. And not all of them make it, right? So it's a chaotic race, right? Hence, the chaotic waters of Nun is representative of the birth process that goes on inside the womb of the woman. And this is why the woman or the female in ancient Egypt was held in high esteem. Egypt is one of the cultures, or one of the main cultures. I mean, they do it in ancient India and the Dravidian culture. They do it in other African cultures too. But Egypt, or many cultures that go beyond monotheistic religions, this is why the woman is upheld in a high esteem. Because the root connection to creation goes back to the female, not the male. As when monotheistic religions, it's very patriarchal, where it's patriarchal dominated, and the woman, for the most part, is suppressed in the 3 monotheistic religions. The woman is pretty much treated as a second-class citizen, right? And you see that all throughout Christianity. You get into some of the Bible belts, like the Baptists. Some Baptist sects don't even allow women to teach or preach. In Islam, the woman can't even pray next to the man in the masjid. She has to pray in a whole nother area in the masjid. She's not even allowed in the masjid when she's on her menses, right? Which is part of this natural cycle because life is in the blood, right? The process of the woman's menstrual cycle is her regeneration or renewal period, right? They call it a period. Why do they call it a period? Because it's within the cycle or the period of the moon, okay? It goes in accordance with cycles so that what we're calling cyclical time happens within the woman on a regular basis because she's getting her period. See, they don't want you to look at this from an esoterical perspective because they want you to look at this like, but then religion says that that's an unclean thing, that the woman has to stay away. There's a certain process. She can't enter a temple, a masjid, or a sacred site, this, that, or the other. Okay, you don't find any of that shit in ancient Egypt. Not talked about once anywhere, right? You don't find it in a lot of indigenous cultures that predate religion because it wasn't a factor. It was never looked upon in that light. This is what male chauvinistic men did later when they created all these religions, rules, regulation, and laws. And the whole purpose in mind was to put the men here and put the female here. So there's always this inferiority that it's men rule, women are second-class citizens. When in ancient and indigenous cultures, it was the complete reverse. Okay? And the reality is, as I've said before, there's something that the woman has way more levels or traces of than we have called mitochondrial DNA. Men have it, but in very minute levels, nowhere near the levels that women have it. I've referred to you guys many times before. There was an article in Time Magazine. It was 1993. Just Google Time Magazine, 1993, the mitochondrial Eve. And they will break this down to you that when you research the mitochondrial Eve, the mitochondrial DNA was the oldest DNA they could trace humans back to, and females had it first. And this is when you go back, per se, into the bones of Lucy, and you go back, who they call Lucy, right? They give it this simple American name because they don't want you to know they found it in West Africa. Through carbon and fossil dating, they trace her going back billions of years, okay? So scientists and archaeologists will tell you the DNA of women was on this planet first before men, where religion tells you the complete opposite. Now, you could further look at this and look at the human anatomy of the male and the female. The female literally has everything on her body the male has. You say, what are you talking about, Benita? You sound crazy. No, I'm not. A man has two breasts. A woman does. What purpose does a man's two breasts serve? Can any man here breastfeed and produce milk? If you can, you're fucking amazing. Okay, you got, a woman originally always gave birth to twins. That's why she had two breasts. She was always breastfeeding two twins at all times. As we became more genetically defected, that was not a given anymore. If you go back, even the Bible alluded to it in the beginning, because if you look from the very beginnings of Adam and Eve, they gave birth, they had twins, twin boys, two twin girls, right? But this is a process you will see. Twins was something that was very normal when you go back into indigenous cultures. Well, through a bunch of science and evolution and how the divinity of the female has changed over the years, it still happens, right? Sometimes a person can give birth to twins, but a woman all the time in ancient times would give birth to twins. Therefore, she was always breastfeeding two children at the same time. A man can't do that, right? You say, well, a man has a penis, a woman don't. Well, you obviously don't understand what a clitoris is, right? It's the same thing, okay? It's just a man basically is a genetic mutation of what we're seeing of the female, because your breasts serve no purpose, okay? And it goes deeper than that, but it goes back to understanding the levels of mitochondrial DNA, which is the oldest DNA, right? And this is how they trace the origins of, quote unquote, some of the first, or who they claim the first humans that walked the planet. I'm not telling you to believe any of this stuff. I'm telling you to take the time to go research it for yourself, is what I'm telling you. Okay. And when you go back, and you're going to find out, it's only monotheistic religions that teach this patriarchal indoctrination. Okay. So the chaotic waters of Nun, or nothingness, goes back to the female. It's no different when we look into the story of Tiamat, right? She's one of the primordial mothers that go back, and you trace that to Leviathan, the serpent. We're getting back into the primordial waters, right? And the science of the dragon. When we're dealing with the dragon current, all of this is going back to that state of nothingness. So again, you must have no thing first, or nothing, to have the sum of a thing, a state of nothingness. It's the best way you can explain it in human form, right? But it gets let's go a little more deep into that. There was a liquidy primordial abyss everywhere, endless and without boundaries or directions. That's key. There's no boundaries or directions, no parameters. I tell you that all the time. When we're working with the clip hop, the void, the abyss, the citra aqua, there are no parameters, no beginning, no end, no boundaries, no starting point, no ending point. I know that's hard sometimes for the human mind to comprehend, because we're programmed with a beginning and an end, a starting point and ending time from a very early age. Okay? And the Bible does the fuckery, because Genesis talks about the beginning, and then you get into the alpha omega concept in the Greek in the book of Revelations. right? It throws you off, and it's done intentionally. Without boundaries or directions, Egyptian called the cosmic ocean, the watery chaos, nun, the unpolarized state of matter. Water is formless, and of itself it does not take on any shape, nor does it resist being shaped. And there's another saying that's not here. Water finds its way back to water. What do I mean by that? If you pour water right now on the floor in your house, it'll stay wet, but what happens eventually? It will eventually dry up or what? Evaporate. So when it evaporates back into the atmosphere, I just told you earlier, if you were paying attention, this planet is 70% water, so is your body. You're literally living in an aquarium. You're breathing in a water oxygenated atmosphere or air, whether you're aware of it or not. And this is why if you don't intake enough of water, you dehydrate, right? The body needs just the right levels of water and oxygen in order for it to survive, not just the one, okay? So this is when they say it doesn't take shape or form, right? This watery abyss, nor does it resist being shaped. It is formless. And that's why I even add further to that, if water finds its way back to water. Because when it evaporates or merges or meshes back into what it actually is. And this is why we use water as an offering in a lot of systems of spirituality. You see it used a lot in Ifa to your ancestors in Egypt. It's one of the most powerful offerings because water is the conduit that connects this realm and the spiritual realm. So people always say, why is that done in a lot of cultures where, especially on ancestral altars, right? Or it's one of the greatest offerings you can give. Sometimes sea salt in water, right? Sea salt is added because the salt also represents the life force, right? Connected with this conduit that we're calling water, right? So there's a science in that of how the ancient Egyptians were trying to explain this creation concept, right? But let's continue. Scientists agree with the ancient Egyptian description of the origin of the universe as being an abyss. Scientists refer to this abyss as neutron soup, where there are neither electrons nor protons, only neutrons forming one huge, extremely dense nucleus. Which this is what I mean when I say the primordial, when you're dealing with Leviathan, which is the principle of continuity and existence. And within that existence this is what I'm talking about. It's this dense nucleus, right? Or as they refer to it here as this neutron soup. It's only neutrons forming one huge, extremely dense nucleus, right? Now, try to wrap your mind around that for a minute. When we're talking about the abyss, and we're talking about tapping into that level, now correlate that to if you're working with the clip-hop, if you do work with Leviathan energy, this concept you now can look at it and go, oh, I could take that now, that makes sense, etc. But let's continue, okay? Such chaos in the pre-creation state was caused by the compression of matter, i.e. atoms did not exist in their normal states, but were squeezed so closely together that many atomic nuclei were crowded into a space previously occupied by a single normal atom. Well, let me tell you where this got worse, which is not talking about here, but let me drop this on you too. Remember, for years, scientists thought that atoms were the smallest particles. Then they said, no, they're not the smallest particles, right? Then they said quarks were the smallest particles because they saw the atom broke down into 4 parts. Then they said, no, man, the quarks even break down into more. Then they said it was byads. Byads, that's it. That's the smallest particles. Then they said, holy shit, the byads break down into Zeds. It's never ending. It's never ending. It just kept going and going and going. So then they came to the realization that these smallest particles of atoms can continuously be broken down into smaller particles. So they said, fuck, we've been wrong for all these years. It's almost like I told you, if you ever go into your bathroom and you look in the mirror, right? And you open the mirror and you see the reflection in the mirror, and then you see a million of you going back. It's never ending. It's never ending. And this is what I mean. For those of you who did that Leviathan ritual not too long ago, there was a part in the ritual where we said, we have always existed before time itself. And some of you emailed me about that, wanted a better understanding about that. What really on a deeper level did that mean in that ritual? I'm explaining it to you now. Okay? You have always existed before what you know as time existed itself. Okay? They want you to think that you're this Johnny come lately band. You've just forgotten. This is just a lot of lost knowledge that you forgot. None of this stuff is new. Okay? None of this stuff is new. This is just stuff you forgot. Nobody out here teaching, no matter how new it might sound, it just might sound new to you because you forgot. Okay? We've always had this ability to have this clear connection with this, but it's been lost through a lot of the programming and the work that's been done on us mentally. All right. So they realized that atoms kept breaking down. Under such conditions, the electrons of these atoms were squeezed out of their orbits and moved about freely, i.e., in a chaotic, degenerate state. New or none is the subjective band, the symbol of the unformed, undefined, undifferentiated energy, matter, inert or inactive, the uncreated state before the creation. It cannot be the cause of its transformation, the state of nothingness, right? That's, hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. Let's continue here. So this, when it's talking about none, it's a representation of this state of nothingness, and that's where we left off. The term infinite, of course, is synonymous with not finite or undefined, unlimited, unshaped, undifferentiated, and so on. This means that energy slash matter out of which all things are formed must be in its essential state, unformed, undefined, undifferentiated. This is chaos. That's what I was saying earlier. You have to have chaos first before you can have order. Okay? This bullshit of these spiritual systems out there where they want you to stray away from their concept. Oh, chaos and darkness is bad. It's evil. Don't tap into that. If you tap into this chaotic energy, you're dealing with evil and demonic shit. That's religious mentality. Okay? And it's, look, it's even encoded in there. I know they'll tell you that in the Gospel of John, the very first chapter, I know they'll tell you it's talking about Jesus, but it has nothing to do with Jesus. When it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. That's that intellect. Some people can't go into chaos and darkness and acknowledge that intellect or light, but that's true. Look, it's when you go through any initiatic order, masonry, I'm telling you this from being a mason for over 20 something years now. This is why in certain initiatic orders you're blindfolded. You do your best work when you're not looking with these two physical eyes. In the darkness, you're using these eyes, right? What they call the pineal or the third eye, right? So if you reflect, if you've been through an initiatic order like masonry or the Eastern Star or whatever, right? You'll find out at first, a lot of people will tell you, right? It's chaotic at first because you're blindfolded, you can't see, and then you have to adapt to the darkness. But most will also tell you as time goes on and you settle in, it's almost like you start to naturally see, feel, your senses become sharper and more vivid because now you're navigating through the ritual and the darkness, but you're seeing everything now with this eye. This is what Christ meant in the Bible when he said the body becomes a full of light. The eye, it becomes one. He's talking about this, the pineal, right? They didn't understand it, but that's what he was talking about when the body becomes full of light, intellect. He wasn't talking about artificial light, luminous light. He was talking about the intellect, which when intellect, pure intellect or consciousness is being received by the pineal and the pineal is activated, this is when the individual now becomes what we like to say is woke or awakened, right? It was no different than the story in the Bible of Jacob's ladder, right? I told you guys this before. And the place where this happened was at Phinio, P-H-I-N-I-E-I. It sounds like pineal or pineal gland. Same thing. When Jacob ascended the ladder, we're talking about when you look at the spinal cord and when you look at how the Kundalini energy travels up, it was talking about when his crown chakra was open and he was able to ascend to the throne of quote unquote El, he now attained the state of God because it says he wrestled with God at a place called Phinio, which is really pineal, right? And then it says after that incident, his name was changed from Yaqub or Jacob to what? Israel. What does the word Israel mean? Ascension to El, because he ascended to the throne or the heavens of El. He became a god. So his name was changed now from Jacob to Israel. It's talking about self-initiation, awakening, right? Kundalini energy, the pineal. They call it a ladder because if you look at the spinal cord and how it connects to the brain, it's literally a ladder of ascension. So all it was talking about that he had raised his Kundalini energy, right? And this is all done, what? Within that first principle of Tahuti or the Hermetic principle. All is mental. Mental is all. The universe is mental and so is the animated universe, okay? You've got to be able to tap in on that level, okay? You have to be able to tap in, okay? All right, let's continue. Once I'm done, I'll get to the chat. I'll answer all your questions to the best of my ability. Just be patient. I'm almost done. I want to get through a couple more things, and then we'll go on the chat, okay? I'll see your questions, your comments. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. All right. So it's an essential state, unformed, undefined, undifferentiated. If the material basis of the world had any essential definitions or formations, these would act as limiting factors to its ability to be transformed infinitely. Its essential lack of definition is an absolute requirement for God's creative omnipotence. That's why I was saying earlier, right? If it would be impossible, that story that God rested on the seventh day. Right? Because for that quick moment that he rested, he wouldn't be omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient. And then they make another mistake. If they say God is in a place called heaven, then that means he's not here. And that also means that heaven would be bigger than God, so he couldn't be omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient. See, there's and I say that because these are men creating these stories. And this is why I try to say God doesn't make mistakes, men make mistakes. That was why I always used to bring those points up years ago. And they'd be like, oh, you're just trying to, you're dealing with semantics. No, I'm trying to get you to see something, how something is off here. I'm trying to get you to look at the bigger picture, that those concepts make no sense. All you got to use is simple, basic common sense to see that. But most people are comfortable with being fed fairy tales and myths and stories that are not true. Okay? But let's continue. Okay. The condensed energy in the pre-creation neutron soup was continuously building up. This condensed energy reached the optimum concentration of buildup energy that led to its explosion and expansion outwardly. And it gives the rough term, nobody really knows, 15 billion years ago. The loud sound of this explosion is what caused the breakup of the constituent parts of the universe. That sound is what you see in many cultures replicated, what we know as the Om or the Aum mantra, right? You'll see a lot of cultures that use the Om mantra, right? The Buddhist monks and other cultures, that's the original vibrational sound of creation or that explosion. They believe by the constant chanting of that mantra, the vibrational frequency, which is on the note of what we call D major, because the sound of that creation, they believe that explosion or that bang was on the scale of the D major to F note, right? And if you've ever heard the Buddhist monks, when that's chanted on that D major to F note, it has a certain vibrational tone or frequency to it. So they believe by and we use it in our rituals. Those, you guys know, if you've partaken in the rituals, I use it in the rituals. In certain rituals connecting to certain things that we do, I use that tone, that frequency, right? Because they believe that that brings them in alignment with the original vibrational sound of creation. So they believe it aligns them with all the forces of nature and creation. And this is why in certain Buddhist monk cultures where they have sacred temples and sites set up, there's somebody, they rotate it and they're doing it 24 hours. They believe it's the tachyon frequencies, right? There's a term, if you look it up, called tachyon frequencies, tach energy on. They believe it's the glue of the universe, or our universe, our Milky Way galaxy. And they believe the only way to harmonize things out, that the energy must be perpetuated constantly. If not, what we know as creation would cease. I mean, I'm just telling you, this is some of their teachings. And there's some truth to that, right? There's a degree of understanding to that, okay? All right. So sound is important. Frequency is important. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The loud sound of this explosion is what caused the breakup of the constituent parts of the universe. The ancient Egyptian texts likewise repeatedly stressed that the divine commanding voice, meaning the divine sound, was the cause of creation. Okay? Everything in the universe is harmonics. Look, when you hear certain tones, sounds, and frequency, it affects you. And all you have to do is go look music. Look how certain music touches you. Music can affect or touch you in a positive or a negative way. There's certain sounds and instruments that might irk you. You might not like the high-pitched sound of an electric guitar. You might not like the sound of certain instruments. They might irritate and just don't resonate with you. Then there's certain sounds and frequencies and tones of music that bring a very calming, healing, uplifting aspect to your soul. And music is an integral part, and harmonics is an integral part of your own personal spiritual alignment. And this is why in a lot of indigenous cultures, especially going back to Africa, why the power of the drum and music was so essential in invoking energies, deities, or spirits. So for an example, when you go into the Ifa culture, there's certain rhythms and patterns that are played for the Orisha to bring them down in rituals and ceremonies. And there's certain individuals called bata drummers that have to be taught and initiated on how to play those rhythms correctly. If you've ever been to a bimbe, or if you've ever been to any, in a gungun or any of those rituals or ceremonies, you will see. If you ever seen the bata drummers, they're usually a pair of three. And they have a drum, you'll see them, they sit and hold it, and there's a skin on both sides, and they usually lay it on their lap. And they're initiated and they're trained. They can play for any of the Orisha to bring them down. And any individual that's crowned at these gatherings, right, once those rituals start playing, they go into certain dances, right? And there's a reason why the rhythms and the dances are affiliated together, because if you even go back to the Native Americans, they would do something called the rain dance, which would create something we call SCWs, standard column of waves, where they could literally make it rain by certain energies that they created through these rhythms, frequencies, and movements. Well, it's the same thing that's done in Ifa and or Santeria when possession is brought upon an individual who has been crowned or initiated, and an Orisha has been put on their head. Okay? There's a reason for that. And sound and vibration in the music is strongly connected to that. Okay? So all of this is linked in and connected together. So sound and form, which we're about to go into, is powerful. And this is why you need to be very cautious of what you expose yourself to. Now, they've been for years getting us sick with ELFs, extreme low frequencies. It's creating illnesses in us, diseases. I'm not going to say certain trigger words because I told you they took down some of my videos. when I was talking about this in relation to certain things that were out there not too long ago. ELFs are on extreme low frequencies where the naked ear can't hear it, right? They're created so low, they could be sent to us. They can get into our cell and molecular structure. They can damage our occult nerves and non-magnetic brain particles. They do this through ionized radiation. They do this through, and unfortunately, we're living in a world where we can't be void of it. This is running wherever power lines or power grids are, where technology is running rampant now. You're exposed to it. We're exposed to it right now if you're in front of a computer or a cell phone. But how you can reverse and protect yourself from the process is through your ritual work, by altering your vibrational frequency, by speeding it up, making yourself less dense. This protects you from it. You cannot avoid it, not in this day and time in 2024. There's nowhere you can go. You can go live in the fucking mountains as a monk somewhere. Those frequencies are, that ionized radiation is out there in the atmosphere. I don't care where you go. You can go somewhere, well, I'm living up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. It's still in the atmosphere. You still have to do internal work to protect yourself against it. They know this, and this is how they're getting us sick. I told you guys in the end of the year class, you're going to start even more so this year, especially those that have allergies. You're going to notice I'm getting a lot more mucus buildup. I'm getting a lot more dry coughs, a lot more sinus issues, a lot more headaches, migraines, buzzing sound in my ear, sharp shooting pains. You could just be sitting on the couch and this sharp ripping pain just runs through your leg, your knee, down to your foot. Just all this weird shit that you never experienced before. And I know some of you are experiencing it. And you have no explanation of where this is coming from. I'm trying to tell you. And I told you guys at the end of the year, if you were in that class, they're going to go to work harder on us this year moving forward with these ELFs. It's to control us. It's to get us to depend on everything that they throw at us, basically. But the good news is you can counter attack this. There's work you can do to protect yourself against this. So if you feel a lot of those things going on, it's time. That's a sign for you to get in your ritual chamber and to do spiritual work to reverse that process. Okay? Because they're messing with the atmosphere. They're messing with the weather. They're altering the magnetic grids. They're tapping into energy and frequencies and technologies that's beyond our comprehension. There's shit they're fucking with that you have no idea that even exists. Remember, anytime they give you a technology, I don't care if it's cell phones, AI, right? And by the way, AI, when you look at AI and you break down, if you look at A is the first number in is the first letter of the alphabet, that's number 1. I is 9, that's 19. 1 and 9 is 10, right? And that represents in the occult a new cycle, a new beginning. So AI is trying to introduce to you a whole new paradigm, right? It goes even deeper than that. But this is the fuckery they're up to. They chose AI for, those letters were not just chose randomly, okay? They got a method to everything they do. And when I'm saying, when they reveal a technology to you, they've had it for years before they introduce it to the public. You think it's new. It's new to us because they just introduced it to us. They've been fucking with AI for years before they even introduced it to us. Okay? Got to be on point with this stuff. If you go back to last year, I was doing videos. There's a war for the control of your mind right now. That's what this war is about. Look at all the fuckery. We're getting ready to head into a circus election. You're going to see a circus come November. All of it is a distraction. While we're distracted with foolishness, this is when they go behind the scenes and start doing whatever it is they're trying to really get accomplished. So while you're focused on politics and all of this distractional shit in the news, right? Now we have another school shooting, unfortunately, in Georgia. Look how when they build up to a key moment, like you're going to see more of this shit, okay? You're going to see more of it. Anytime it gets to a critical moment, or if something going on in the world or our country or globally, there's always some distraction. Racial tensions increase, school shootings, there's political chaos, confusion, and corruption. That means they're getting ready to do something big. They need to create a veil or a distraction so you're not paying attention. So now you're caught up in your emotions about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. right? And Joe Biden. That's part of the distraction. This is what I mean when you guys reach out to me, say, did you see that on the news? It doesn't change what we have to do spiritually. Stay on your square. Keep at your ritual work. Stop getting sucked into that shit. I told you guys many times before, you're living in two paradigms or existences or universes side by side, and you're jumping back and forth to them. You don't realize it. The illusionary universe that they want you trapped in, which is this here that you think is what you're seeing, they want you trapped here to control you. It's why some of you keep jumping back and forth, because you have moments where you jump back into outside of this physical paradigm, but then when you lose track of your emotions, you jump back here and you get trapped into this way of thinking. This is what I mean when I say you live side by side. It's a parallel universe. They don't want you to know that. And movies like The Matrix were trying to show that, right? Where they were trying to show you the spiritual realm. What? It's not above. It's not out there somewhere. It was a thin veil or a wall. You had to break the matriarchal system, but how did you have to do it? You had to go into the deep aspect of your subconscious mind. They hook shit up to Neo's brain. And like I told you before, they called him Neo for short, which represents the neocortex of your brain, right? Because that's responsible for creating a lot of your spiritual experiences, which ties into the hippocampus area of your brain or your barotheric gland, right? Which that gets to a whole nother story. But they always what? Tax this mechanism to Neo's head, and everything took place in the mental universe. And once he was able to tap in, then you saw how he was able to remove that veil, or how they were able to remove the matriarchal system that we are trapped in, right? So it's not that this whole physical world is an illusion, right? It's only as real or illusionary as you make it, okay? That's something a little complex for people to comprehend, but don't get it twisted. It becomes more real to you when you become a low vibrational frequency being. And this is why I always joke around and say, if you think this whole physical world is an illusion, then stand in front of me and let me punch you dead in your face. Because if you're a low vibrational frequency being, you're going to feel that. Blood will pour. So the more we vibrate at lower frequencies, this physical world that we're in becomes more and more real. And this is why when you look at spiritual systems that we're trying to teach you about the planes, right? The physical plane, the mental plane, the spiritual plane, et cetera, and all that, this is what it was trying to tell you. There were vibrational degrees or frequencies, right? Most people don't get beyond the mental plane. They get there, which is the gateway to the astral, right? There's not an astral realm. There's astral realms, plural, right? I love how people say, well, they astrally travel. They got to the astral realm, singular. That's not true. There's astral realms. The realms are gateways to other gateways of existence, okay? When you're dealing with the cyclical or the cycle, right? And that's why I said here, this represents no boundaries, no parameters. When you're into that pure state of nothingness, the void, the abyss. Let's continue. All right, where did I lead off? Okay, here we go. Sound and form. The earliest recovered ancient Egyptian texts 5,000 years ago showed the belief that the word caused the creation of the world. The Egyptian book of the coming forth by light, wrongly called, or life, wrongly called the Book of the Dead, the oldest written text in the world, states, I am the eternal. I am that which created the word. I am the word. It also talks about Ptah, P-T-A-H, Tar, but depending on how you want to pronounce it, it says in there that he thought himself into existence, that he's a self-created being. This is all the things I was telling you earlier when I was saying, when we did the Leviathan ritual, you have always been here, even before what you know as time itself, right? It means he thought himself into his physical body, right? Because in its true form, you are intellect / light or energy, right? And then when you chose to come here and slow down your vibrational frequency and took on human form, this is what it means. Some of us chose to come here. Some correlated to the falling mentioned in the biblical story. It says those who fell with Lucifer. And I told you that's not what that story is talking about. That fall was your ascension. Okay? That wasn't a falling. See, they tricked you with that shit. That were those divine beings that said, fuck that. I'm not conforming to the God. Because when you're looking at the Star Wars movies, when you're looking at any of the stories that you're reading in the Bible about the wars that took place in the heavens, that was talking about things that took place outside of our earth before what we know as earth even existed. Right? That's what the Star Wars trilogy was telling you about, the wars that took place in the heavens. Right? And then the Bible correlates, says Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. Darth Vader and the stormtroopers versus the Jedi, versus Luke Skywalker and the Jedi Knights. See that? And you had Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then you had Yoda, right? Who all played key archetypes in that war. And you could correlate them to certain spiritual characters if you look closely. Okay? The green one. Yoda was the green one. Okay? So they've been telling you from day one, right? And that's talking about before. That's going beyond, quote unquote, when we talk about the physical creation of our planet, right? We're not talking about the galaxies, the universes, and the multiverses, right? I mean, this shit, there's layers to this shit, man. I could be here all night talking about this. But let's continue. I want to get through the rest of this. I'm almost here. I don't know if I can get through it all. Wow, it's a lot. Yeah, I ain't gonna be able to get through all this tonight. I'll mark this. We'll do a part 2 to this. I'll take some questions shortly. But let me finish with this next. I want to try to get to the existence of all the becoming one if I can and stop there. Let's see. But let's finish with sound and form. Oh, man. You picked the wrong spot to lay, dude. Okay. We also find in the Book of the Divine Cow, found in the shrines of Tutankhamun, that the heavens and their host came into existence merely by pronouncing words whose sound alone evokes things. As its name is pronounced, so the thing comes into being. For the name is a reality, the thing itself. In other words, each particular sound has its corresponding form. This is why in some sacred orders, there's a mantra vibrated, and I show you guys this in the Kundalini Meditation Awakening class. Each chakra has a certain mantra, sound or vibration that activates it or awakens it. Okay? And when all of these chakras are awakened, right? Beyond the 7, we know there's 9, there's actually 11. I'm not going to get into all that tonight. I know most people will teach about the basic 7, some will teach about the 9, but there's actually 11, right? There's something called the dark star chakra in the occult that is not a chakra that's physically to your body. It's etherically connected to your etheric self. And this connection to this dark star chakra, it would activates your spiritual experiences. I'm not going to get into that. It's a whole class in itself. We are tapping into that on the Patreon page. You have 11 chakras, not 9, not 7, right? But they're not going to teach you about that dark star chakra that exists. It's not physically connected to your body. It's etherically connected to your body, right? And that gets into a whole nother science. And once you activate that dark star chakra, that's a whole nother level. Okay, I'll get into that another time. I don't want to divert. All right. So it came in by the sound alone evokes things. As its name is pronounced, so things come into being. For the name is a reality. The thing itself, in other words, each particular sound had its corresponding form. Modern science has confirmed a direct relationship between sound wave frequency and form. As I said, sound and vibration can heal. It can also cause damage based on the frequency of the sound. And that's why music is a powerful tool, right? I'm listening to music. Like, look, I'm so in tune with the frequency sound of music and the healing power of it and the transformational power of it. My mind immediately will go to a particular artist. Like for an example, today, like let me start with yesterday. I'm listening, it just automatically came to me. I'm listening to Hall & Oates, the greatest hits of Hall & Oates, the greatest hits of Culture Club, out of nowhere. And then when I'm tapping into it and listening to certain songs and frequencies, I knew why. Today, I go shift to the Force MDs. I'm listening to the Force MDs' greatest hits. I'm listening to Troop. I'm listening to Guy, right? And there's a reason why. It goes a little bit deeper, because that when you're connected to certain music that was integrated in your DNA and your upbringing, right? I told you what will happen is your spirit will connect you to that. It's a cellular awakening. It literally revitalizes and heals you at a cellular level. So as I'm listening to that music, I'm tapping into also, I can remember every moment, every song that came on. It's crazy. My brain has a specific pattern that was aligned with the lyrics, the vocals, the sound, the breakdown of certain songs, the certain rhythms, certain instruments that affected me a certain way. And that opens me up to particular moments that were key in my life. It's crazy. Okay? It's off the chain. When you understand how to use music ritualistically, it can be very healing. And as I said to you, when you listen to music of your era and your generation, it keeps you young. This is why I always joke around. I'm sorry. I just can't get into that trap mumble rap shit. That shit is completely fucking retarded to me. Okay. It just all sounds the same. And I'm sure when we were younger, our parents were saying the same shit about ours. And guess what? When we're gone, our kids will be saying the same shit. But it's scary to think what it's going to. If where it's at now, shit is scary. Because if you can just sound like you got something wrong with you and put it over a beat and it's considered music, it's crazy. When you can just go hey, like you got Tourette's, because they're not even saying anything. They just moaning, making sounds, whining, talking like they got Down syndrome or something's fucking wrong with them. So it's crazy. That's a whole nother story. All right, let's finish this. We're getting there. So modern science has confirmed a direct relationship between sound and frequency, wave frequency, and form. That's real. Any word is scientifically a vibrational complex element which is a wave phenomenon characterized by movements of variable frequency and intensity. In other words, sound is caused by compromising air particles, by rearranging the spacing and movement of air particles, i.e. creating forms. Each sound wave frequency has its own geometrical corresponding form. So why can't we use this same concept in our magic? Via what? Mantras and chanting. Okay? I told you that. And this is why, if you've been with me in the Patreon rituals, you see I'm very big on mantras and chants. When they're done in the right tone and frequency, when you reach a certain harmony, this is when the gates open up, portholes open up. Some of you have performed these rituals with me, and there might only be 8, 9, or 10 of us doing it together, but then all of a sudden it feels like there's thousands of people in the room doing it with us. That's because we've reached a certain frequency and sound or pitch where we've opened up a porthole for interdimensional beings to come through and join us. Literally, to sit with us and join us. And this is why what you're hearing isn't an illusion. It's just you've broken what they call the sound barrier, because they've created a sound barrier along with a time barrier to keep you disconnected from the multiverses. They don't want you to know this, right? So they dumb you down with what? Religion and bad information and deceptive this, that, and the other. Okay. So this, like I say, this shit is deep. All right. The divine sound transformed the potential inert energy, matter, and nun into parts of the universes as differentiated. What do they call Atum? The undifferentiated one, right? That's one of his titles. Orderly structured kinetic energies in the form of objects, thoughts, forces, physical phenomenon, etc. Okay? Transforming one type of energy potential into another type of kinetic made the universe come to life in whole, and in its constituent parts, it's all matter of energies. Like I said, energy cannot be created, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be manipulated. And that's what magic is. It's about manipulating energy. right? And this is why I said you can't banish. There's no such thing as banishing. You cannot banish energy. What you're doing is you're manipulating it. You can't banish it. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't go anywhere. When you think, or what you're calling doing a banishing ritual, you're manipulating the energy, breaking it down. You're not destroying it. It doesn't exist. And then there's the frequency of that energy. As I told you before, when you're dealing with vibrational frequency, you could take any object. I'm just using this because I have a lighter in front of me. I've done this with a pen, a pencil, right? As this is a solid, vibrating at its lowest frequency right now, it appears to just be solid. But if I keep doing this and speed up, and the faster I go, eventually you're not going to even see. You're just going to see these magnetic particles. This is what it doesn't go nowhere. This is what it means when you understand the doctrine of vibration and the 7 Hermetic principles. Everything is constantly moving in a rapid pace, creating the illusion. You think that it's going here or there. It's speeding up its vibrational frequency. I could do my finger the same thing. As the vibrational frequency speeds up, you start to become less dense and you take on a different form, an etheric or etheric, or Etherian or etheric form. That's it. The Rosicrucians called it the vital life cord or the vital ether cord, right? Many people have talked about it over the years, okay? When you're disconnected from that, when you're disconnected, this is how you know sometimes out of nowhere you might feel sick, because sometimes you're feeding the physical more than the spiritual. So there becomes a disconnect between your vital life cord and your physical body. So now when the body becomes dim and it does not have enough intellect or light, you start to get sick. This is why sometimes you might come down with something and there's no explanation for it. You go to the doctor, sometimes you get tests, this, that, or the other, and they don't have no explanation for it. But you feel that there's something wrong. That's your soul and your spirit communicating to your body, get your shit together, because you're out of alignment, okay? And this is what I mean when I tell you guys over the years, when you say, well, how hard or when should I stop? When should I pause? When do I know I'm not doing enough or I'm doing too much? Your personal daemon, your true higher self, your spirit will speak to you and tell you. It'll tell you when it's time. Look, you've been fucking around bullshit. It's time to get to work. Your body and spirit will also communicate to you, you've been going a little too hard. You need to take a break. Time to slow down. Not time to do some rest, some rejuvenation, or some healing, right? Let your inner being, your true higher self, communicate to you that. It's not about asking somebody else or trying to go into a book to determine that, because that's not going to give you the answer. See, I'm at a point, like many, where I know when it's time to chill. I know when it's time to go hard. I know when it's time or what type of work I should be doing based on the moment, based on what's going on in my life and what's going on around me. I know when I'm getting sick or disconnected or I'm feeling a certain way. I'm aware of what has caused it, and it gives me intuition and insight of what I need to do to change that energy, okay? This is how we have to be able to tap in, because they don't want you to do any of that no more. They want to control every aspect of your existence, and it's crazy, okay? All right, let's get into this last one, and then I'm going to stop there. Atum, the manifested cosmic energy. As we have seen, creation came out of the state of no creation or nothing. The Egyptians called it Nun or nil, right? Also represents the pre-creation state of the universe. So we're talking before our universe, our planet, our galaxy was created. Because remember, we're in the Milky Way galaxy, one of many galaxies. So you would like to think that that's it, that there's just this universe and this galaxy. No, there's multiverses. There's multi-dimensional beings. And you come from a lineage of these multi-dimensional beings. You've been here many times before, whether you're aware of that or not. It's not your first go around here, right? You've been here before. You just forgot, okay? There is no universe, none, nil, zero. Such a state of the universe represents the subjective being unformed, undefined, undifferentiated energy or matter. Atum, the undifferentiated one. Its inert energy is inactive. On the other hand, the creation state is orderly, formed, defined, and differentiated, right? That's when you take the chaos now And in that creative state, it's talking about here, order is being made out of the chaos, right? Well, look at that on your spiritual path internally. The chaos that exists within you that is manifesting in your life was self-created, okay? So you have to make order out of that chaos, not somebody else, okay? Creation is sorting out, giving definition to bring order to all the chaos, the undifferentiated energy, matter, and consciousness of the primal state. All the ancient Egyptian accounts of creation exhibited this with well-defined, clearly demarcated stages. The first stage of creation, these are the three I wanted to run to, I was talking about earlier. The first stage of creation was the self-creation of the supreme being as creator and being, i.e. the passage from subjective being, none, to objective being, Atum, atoms, right? In simple human terms, this is the equivalent of the moment that one passes from sleeping, unconscious state to subjective being. To be aware of oneself, gaining consciousness, objective being. And this is what I was talking about when you bring your subjective reality and transition that understanding into your objective reality. This is what one calls being awoke or in a state of consciousness, right? It's like standing on solid ground. The stage of creation was represented by the Egyptian sages as Atum or Atum, rising out of Nu, or Nun. In the Unas or the pyramid text, there's the following invocation. Salutation to thee, Atum. Salutation to thee who comes into being by himself. Thou art high on the name of the high mound. Thou comest into being in this thy name, Khepri, right? Khepera, right? You see this depicted as the scarab beetle in the hieroglyphics on the wall of ancient Egypt. You'll see Khepera or the sun. You'll see the scarab beetle with the rays of the sun. Why the scarab beetle? Why the sun? Because it talks about that state of creation that exists beyond person, place, or thing. And let me explain, just so we're clear on this. We also know in Egyptian Heka, or working with the teachings of through the adversarial mask of Set, there's something called Khepera or Khefer, coming into the reality of who you really are. We all have moments of Khepera in our spiritual work. It comes from this, okay? Because what it said here was, let me back up to make it clear. It says Atum means the oneness of all, right? Back up here, hold on. I mean, salutation to thee who comes into being by himself, self-created. Thou art high on this name, high mountain, thou comest into being in this thy name, Khepri. Why the scarab beetle? Because the scarab beetle rolls its dung. It can procreate on its own. It's one of the insects in the animal kingdom that has that ability. So it was a symbol of self-mastery, self-creation. And this is why you see the scarab imposed upon the sun. And this is why you see it, Khepere, connected to Ra or the sun. And I've explained this to you guys before. It's actually four in that. It's not just Atum, Atun, and Amun, which are the three stages or points of the sun. The so-called rising of the sun, as I said before, the sun doesn't rise. The earth just evolves, it rotates on its axis. It takes 23 hours, 56 minutes, 56 seconds, roughly 24 hours to do a full rotation on its axis, but it's on a tilt and a wobble. So as it rotates and it wobbles and that wobble tilts down, it creates the illusion as the planet is facing this side, it creates the illusion that the sun is rising. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just if you're somewhere right now where it's nighttime, that the earth is now rotated on its axis, where you're facing this side of the planet, where the back side of the earth is now blocking the sun. And then when it tilts on its wobble and comes back around, it creates the illusion in the morning that it's rising. And when it comes back around and it wobbles, it makes its tilt again. It creates the illusion that it's setting on this side, where it's rising on the other side. So the earth doesn't rise. The sun doesn't rise or set. It's an illusion. It's always there. It doesn't go anywhere. But we never asked any of those questions when we were young. We literally, a lot of us, don't bullshit yourself. When you were younger, you thought the sun literally disappeared somewhere. Don't fucking lie to yourself. You did. Okay, don't try to act all like you knew. We all thought that when we were younger or when we were dumber. We actually thought it went somewhere. It doesn't go anywhere. If the sun disappeared, existence would cease to creation. The earth would go into a freeze. We go into the ice ages. Okay? So when you see the points of Atum, Amun, which represents the rising of the sun at its highest zenith, and the setting, so-called setting of the sun. But the moment between the rising and the setting that I told you before, which happens if you've witnessed this with your naked eye, it happens in the blink of an eye. But what is the moment that determines where it went from light to darkness or darkness to light? That's the moment of Kepra, right? Because in between that moment, right, is where the transformation takes place. So it's talking about, we call remanifestation in the occult teachings. When we talk about Kefir or Kepera, it talks about remanifestation. Because your goal on this path is to remanifest the real you. You come on this path to destroy the illusionary you, all the corrupt aspects of yourself, how you've been indoctrinated, the programming, etc., and you remanifest the real you. Okay? So this is why that particular passage in the pyramid text refers to that Kepra. It's talking about you. Okay? Atum means the oneness of all, the complete. Atum is connected with the root tam or tamam, meaning to be complete or to make an end of. In ancient Egyptian texts, Atum means these who completes or perfects. And in the litany of Re, Atum is recognized as the complete one, the all. The ancient Egyptian text emphasized the complete one contains all. The ancient Egyptian text reads, I am many of names and many of forms, and my being exists in every natir. Numerically, one is not a number, but the essence of the underlying principle of number. All other numbers being made of it. One represents unity, the absolute unpolarized energy. Atam as the number one is neither odd nor even, but both. Atam is neither female nor male, but both. Atam is the totality of the orderly energy matrix during the creation stage, while Nun is the disorderly energy compound, the subjective being. The total divine energy within the universe is called Nun in its chaotic state, and Atam in its orderly creation and its point of state process. Atam represents the release in an orderly sequence of the existing energy within Nu or Nun, bringing it to life. This represents the objective being. Nun and Atam are images of each other, like numbers 0 and 1. 0 is nothing and nil and means the all. And this is why when you look at 0, we always learn something in math, and I don't think they teach it anymore, like this. When you always saw like a chart going across, you saw 0 in the center, and then you saw it to the right, it would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And as we know, there's no number after 9. It just the 1 slides over, and the 0 goes to the right, and it starts all over again. The 2 slides over, and the 0 goes to the right, and starts all over again. 3. But when we saw that chart, we would see the 0, and to the left, it would say -1, -2, -3, -4. 0 is that nothingness or all. When you go to the left of that 0, you're dealing with that state of nothingness or all. Only on the other side of that 0, when the 1 manifests in this form of unity, what it's talking about here, is when we get into what we know as territory creation, right? Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully people caught that. I'm going to stop there, and let me go into see how many questions I can get into the chat. All right, let me go to the top. Start from the beginning. Xander, what's going on? Okay, I see Kimberly. Yeah, just email me. I know you probably caught that afterwards. Yeah, if anybody wants information on the conference, the cost, you need information on lodging or any other information, just shoot me an email. And I already have a email that's put together, and I can send you all the information for the conference. All right, let's see what else we got. All right, what else? Melanin98 says, what kind of books do you recommend for demon? Oh man, there's a gang of them. Offhand, Demonology by S. Connolly is a good book. Any books by Reverend Kane that deals more with theistic Satanism. Michael W. Ford's books. Some I like, some I don't. He's got a lot of books on a lot of the Klipothic demons. Any of Asenath Mason's works or Temple of Ascending Flame books is good for that. I mean, there's a ton. I put a lot of them in a lot of the different classes, but that's a good place to start with any of those. Melanin98 says, yeah, God. Yeah, I mean, that's a good concept to look at. There's a great piece of lecture on YouTube by Alan Watts. Where he refers to that, and he ties it into creation and the origin of creation. He ties it into Kali Ma. And as you know, Kali Ma means black mother.
I didn't understand that.
Look at that shit. And he describes that she is black, right? He gets into that. So that's a deep concept. But that it always brings to mind that lecture from Alan Watts. But it's true when we were talking about the divine female earlier. Tanisha, what's going on? Long time. I know you pop in and out occasionally. Not sure if you're still here. Good to see you. Yeah, reach out. I know you've been busy. I haven't heard from you in a while, but reach out. Sincere. A cipher is any person, place, or thing. True indeed. A cipher is a mathematical code. I guess that was what I was talking about earlier. It still falls in that paradigm, but that's true. All right, what else we got? Child of Disobedience says, hey, Brother Juniors, I have a project. I'd love to have you on if Tony was talking about whatever you want. Yeah, I think you sent me an email and I responded to that. I didn't hear back from you. Or maybe, I'm not sure if you're the one on Patreon that sent me. Sounds similar. I did respond back to that on the Patreon. But shoot me an email if you're the same person. Maybe you didn't get it. I'm not sure. Yeah, shoot me an email and we can see what we can set up. All right. Degree of Mason. Well, I went both Scottish and Yorkite. I did get up to 32nd on Scottish. As you know, 33rd, you have to be invited. That's a whole nother process. Now, depending on after you leave the blue degrees of the Blue House, which is entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason, some stop there and they just become master mason and they don't do anything after the Blue House. But then you have the option, not to get into too much of the Masonic stuff, but then you have the option to go Scottish or Yorkite. Some do both. Yorkite, to me, was more dealing with a lot of the Hebrew mysticism, more biblical orientated, where I thought Scottish Rite was more esoterical. The degrees, to me, went a little bit deeper. But yeah. All right, Jeremy popped in earlier. He had to go back, break. Okay, what else we got? David Hall, what's going on, brother? Got me thinking about the statement you just made in regards to the spine representing a ladder. As you know, in the Masonic community, Jacob's ladder represents, oh yeah, of course, it represents the same concept. Look, like I said before, even though I go hard in on religion sometimes in classes, I don't have a problem with the Bible or the Quran when it's properly understood. If you understand the origin of it first, which most people don't. For an example, when you're reading the story of Genesis and the story of creation, that's coming from the Gilgamesh epics and the Atrahasis of the Sumerian and cuneiform tablets. It's confusing because you're reading a book that was put together. It's a conglomeration of cultures and ancient texts that predate it. Some people understand that fully, and some people debate it, and some people refuse to accept it and want to fight you on it. That's neither here nor there. When you dig and do the research, the information will speak for itself. So when you understand the esoterical and occult breakdown of the Bible and the Quran, it can be a powerful tool. It's just man came along and interpreted it in a way where he used it as a tool to control the masses, i.e. the Nicene Council, the Council of Trent, and all these other councils that came together and said, this is what it is. These are the books we're going to accept. These are the books we aren't. This is how we're going to teach the teachings. And anybody that doesn't accept it the way we say it, we're going to blaspheme. They're evil. They're this, they're that. That's all that shit is. Okay. But yes, that's a good point. David Cotto says, hey, Benny, will you agree with me that the ancient gods of the primordial abyss must destroy the universe to get rid of this false light that the demiurge created? Yes. But what that's also talking about, remember, the demiurge is when you go into the void of abyss, when you tap into the demiurge, and I did a video several months back on this, the demiurge exists also within your subconscious mind, right? And when you're either devoured by it, controlled by it, like I don't teach how some people teach about the demiurge. There's beings called archons that can attack and destroy you and devour you, right? Some people teach that they're literal beings that can come into existence here and devour you. That's only if you accept that concept. But that's tapping into a realm of existence that's outside of person, place, or thing. So when it's talking about that the universe has to be destroyed, right? That's one of many. But what it's talking about within you first, right? That has to be destroyed first. That which was placed there that is incorrect or false, right? Everything has to be reprogrammed. But in order for that to happen, this is why when we talk about these beings being deconstructive and reconstructive beings, that's what it's talking about. They must deconstruct and destroy, annihilate all of that so it can be built up correct. And you know what movies were trying to show that? That one X-Men movie with, God damn it. The fuck is the name of the character? Shit. Drawing a blank. Oh, man. Oh, shit. Drawing a blank. The one where starts off in the 80s during Reaganomics. Oh, God. Shit. Somebody help me out. Maybe type in the thing. Well, Apocalypto. I'm sorry. The name just came to me. That's what Apocalypto was doing. So if you remember that X-Men movie with Apocalypto, where the movie, I can't remember which one it was. The movie begins where they're showing clips during the Reagan era in the 80s. And Apocalypto was saying humans have become so self-destructive. They have corrupted and destroyed the world. And though he's being portrayed as the villain, he's saying everything he's saying is correct. Because things had fallen so far from where they needed to be, the only solution was for it all to be destroyed. And Apocalypto had come to destroy everything in order to recreate everything again. But then you have the do-gooders who, trying to always save things and trying to stop the natural order of things that must take place. Sound familiar? Stop the natural order of things that must take place. That's what the war and the fight is always about. It's always the villainous characters that are portrayed as evil and villainous. But if you stop, pause, and really listen to what they're saying, 9 out of 10 times, they're really teaching you the truth. Okay? I've learned this deeper through life where everything I was taught to stay away from, which is everything I study now, is when I really learned the truth. Like you were warned to stay away from this stuff, whether you were in religion or other systems of wokeness or consciousness. Oh, don't study the occult. Don't study that left-hand path stuff. That's some devil, Satan, evil shit. That's because they can't explain this stuff. You look at a lot of platforms out here that claim to be conscious and woke. They won't talk about this stuff because they can't, because they know nothing about it. I see people dabbling in it, playing feetsy, footsie fight, got your left foot in and your right foot out. They want to play occult and deep for a quick minute and then mix their little new age bullshit in with it and their little conscious EFA woke shit in with it. That's not the occult. Okay? Everything out there being called the occult and the left-hand path, I keep telling you guys, is not. Stop falling for it. Okay? I'm not saying that I am exclusively the occult or left-hand path. No, there's many good. Thomas Leroy, check his channel out. He drops a lot of good short videos. That's occult. That's left-hand path. Just giving you a quick example. I can throw others out there. But there's bullshit out there too. And much due respect, I know people like to always throw Bobby Hemmett in that spectrum. He is a cult, but he is not left-hand path. I know he's mentioned and alluded to aspects of it here and there, but he is not a left-hand path practitioner. He has talked about the left-hand path briefly in there. He is a cult. Because I get a lot of people that reach out to me, oh, Bobby Hemmett brought me to the left-hand path. Not really. Okay, and that's in no disrespect. I have the ultimate respect for Bobby Hemmett. I like his teachings. He's dropped a lot of jewels. There's been some stuff there, though, like I've mentioned before, he has a video about Alois where he said Alois was a black man on a spaceship coming back to Earth to save black people. I don't know about that shit, right? I'm just saying. But neither here or there. We need to understand what a cult left-hand path is and when you're on that path and what it means. When you have to be careful because when you're infusing all that other shit with it, that can create some problems for you. But this is why a lot of platforms won't talk about this. I'm tired of listening to a history lesson. I'm tired of listening to these debates over Christianity and Judaism in Egypt. It's all a distraction. I keep telling you guys that. Stop getting sucked in. It's the constant same shit they keep throwing out there, the same algorithm to keep you trapped. How many debates are you going to have with the Black Hebrew Israelites against the Kemetic community and this person debating this person and this person's right. It's all a fucking distraction. Okay? All a distraction. Because at the end of the day, it all means nothing. Okay? Because we're at a point in time and what's going on around us in this world, we better get our shit together. Okay? We ain't got time to play around and waste time and be distracted with this nonsense. Okay? But anyway, that was a good point, David. Xander Promo, I'm not a cough type physically, and I've had a constant dry hack and sharp headaches. You can feel the energy on the street. It's a cesspool of anger. Yeah, that's what I mean. The anger, the rage. You could just feel the tenseness in certain places you go. You could just feel with the election coming. They're creating, this is what I'm trying to tell you. They're doing this through sending out certain frequencies. Okay? And this is why it's important that you're doing your spiritual work to counterattack that. This is something I told you guys about. I mentioned it in the oncoming years, going a few back, but I specifically alluded to some of you who are on Patreon. You have access to that class. If you never got around to watching it and you weren't in the end of the year, and I'll be doing another one this year, the end of the year class on Patreon is the class I do where everything that the spirits communicate to me for the oncoming year. I always have a ritual at the end of the year where I get a lot of information that comes through. I don't want to sound like one of those down low people because, I'm not one of that. That word irks me itself. But the difference is I put it out there, not for you to accept it, but for you to take it and look into it further. Okay. And we will do another one. Come the month of December. It's the only class I do in the month of December. I do it at the end of the year. It's the end of the year going into the new year class. And if you've really went in that class and you see a lot of the things I told you, going back to the end of December of last year, you've seen happen. And we're not done. We still got a stretch run to go, a few more months. All right. What else we got? Child of Disobedience says the sun is a simulator now. They actually have a patent of our sun. It sounds crazy, but the sunflowers don't face the sun anymore, and the sun is now white. You say, oh yeah, I've heard that too. I've read information. They have simulators for the sun. They have weather simulators where they can alter the weather. And they've been fucking with that for years, doing stuff like that just to do, I don't know if you want to say experiments or tests, but they've been messing with this weather. They have weather simulators, all that shit. So these are the things we need to, be aware of. Child Disney says there's going to be a false flag real soon. Not sure what you're referring to that. I think I know, but I'm not sure. Yeah, YouTube. Listen, I always get that people don't get notifications. I told you. I just think they mess with the algorithms. I have many people that reach out to me say, I always tell people do the due diligence. When you subscribe to anybody's YouTube channel, you can't just hit the notification bell. You always got to hit the bell, and there's a drop-down menu that comes down. Make sure you check all notifications. Well, I have people said, I've subscribed to your channel. I've clicked the notification bell. I've hit all notifications, and I still don't get it. I know why. I don't know why you're not getting it, but I know why you're not getting it is what I'm saying. So not every people who subscribed and hits all notification gets it. It's crazy because I get people constantly emailing me. I missed your live. I never got a notification. And they subscribe, they hit the notification bell, the drop down box, all notifications. Again, I just think that's them fucking with whatever they want to fuck with. All right. What else we got? Yeah, Pioneer O'Neill. Yeah. All right. Yeah. What is the difference? What is between planes and ND realms? Maybe I'm drawing a blank. Mind. Scream. What do you describe when you say ND realms? I'm probably just drawing a blank. Between planes and realms. Okay. What's the difference between planes and realms? They're connected. They're similar, but they're not exactly the same, right? Because on planes you can have multiple realms, right? So planes are levels where realms exist. So you can keep ascending. Like when you look at, we've seen metaphysical charts where they talk about the physical plane, the spiritual plane, the mental plane. So planes are different levels. Now, I don't want to create this illusion because the spiritual realms or planes are interwoven around you. See, I don't want people to get the illusion that there's this ascending thing where they ascend up. That's done intentionally because that's to confuse you with the whole as above, so below. It's really as within, so without. So what it means to say when you're seeing that science of the Baphomet, what it's really teaching you, what they're telling you is as above, really is also below, but really comes from within, right? As within, so without. It's trying to tell you everything is connected within, right? So this is why I've been saying for years, the spiritual planes and realms are interwoven around you. And they're doorways and gateways, and they're just different levels to this shit. That's why I said when we talk about the astral realm, right? I hear a lot of people say it in a singular sense, and I get confused with that. I'm like, you mean astral realms, plural, because we just went through that state of nothingness. When you tap into the void and the abyss, there is no parameters. There's no, like when you're traveling a road, there's an end to it, right? When you're traveling a certain distance, there's a beginning point and a starting point in most circumstances, I'll say. But that doesn't exist when we're dealing with these spiritual realms and planes. It's something that's continuously ongoing. For an example, when you look at cycles in nature and creation, right? We have something called equinoxes, right? This is something important for us to understand because an equinox roughly is 25,000 years, just slightly under 25,000 years, which is also symbolic of the circumference of our planet, which is roughly 25,000 miles or 24,896 miles, which when you go into some of the teachings, for an example of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he believed the full cycle was when the Holy Quran traveled 1 mile per landmass, the entire circumference of the earth, which completed a cycle or equinox, which means the truth. That's what it would take for the truth to reach the entire globe, a cycle or equinox, right? 2 equinoxes equal what they call an epoch, which would be 50, right? Or 50,000 years, right? So the way the cycles work with cyclical time, there's a connection to the realms and the planes, right? Because as I told you guys before, when you look on a secondhand clock, which is rarely used anymore, and as I said to you guys before, you might see it in public places like a school or a post office, I think. Or you may not see them at all because everything pretty much went from analog to digital. But they fucked up with the secondhand clocks because this is in relation to realms and planes. They fucked up because they said you had a second hand on a clock that had, when you see it with the big hand, the little hand, and the second hand is what they call it, right? They made a mistake by calling it the second hand. It should be called the firsts because they calculate seconds. Look at the trick. Who's calculating the firsts? What do I mean by that? Okay. If you look at a second hand, and the reason why they got rid of mostly analog and went to digital, because they didn't want you to see something. Because if you saw it, you would start to question things. When you look at a second hand on a clock, it goes tick, pause, tock, tick, pause, tock. Who's calculating the pauses between the tick and the tock? So linear time is bullshit because is there really 60 seconds in a so-called minute? Is there really 60 minutes in a so-called hour? And is there literally 24 hours in a so-called day? And is there 30, 28, 29, 30, or 31 days in a month? To go to show you linear time is bullshit, you can't have leap year. Listen to the game. Leap year every 4 years. Where do you get these 24 hours from? Remember what I said early in the beginning of the class. It goes against the science of the all in every aspect of creation. Where would you get it outside of all, and where would you put it? So where do you get those 24 hours of time every 4 years and just add an extra day? Somebody explain that to me. If linear time is correct, which we know it's not. So again, tick, tock. Who's recording the pause between the tick and the tock? So 60 minutes isn't an hour. Okay? Doesn't add up mathematically. I told you cyclical time deals with expanding and contracting, right? And that's why I say the realms and the planes are interwoven around you. I always use the analogy, if you throw a rock into a body of water, when the rock hits the water, from the center of where the rock hits, ripples ripple out from the center. That's how time contracts and expands. That's cyclical time because it's always exists, which connects us to what we call in the occult, the left-hand path, the now. We only deal with the present moment because all things are one existing present moment at all times. You think there was a past. You think that there's a future when it's all one present moment right now. And they don't want you to think like that because you think tomorrow. See, everybody here is going to go to sleep tonight thinking a tomorrow is going to come. You think, don't front. Everybody here thinks that. Don't front like you didn't. But is not tomorrow today? Because if I think about tomorrow now and it does so-called come, is that not today? Is it not one continuous present moment? But then what happens when the lights go out and it's done? Where do we factor in tomorrow? Because sometimes the lights don't come on. The next day doesn't come for some people. But is that not still one continuous moment? It has to be. You want to know why? Because what you're taught as life, birth and life into this realm is actually the beginning cycle to go back to what they call death, to go back into the original existence that you came and were birthed into this world. How do you know that? Real simple. As you get older and age, you're living to die again, to be reborn. Cycles. Right? People think this is living. It's not living. We call it birth. Yes, you think, well, didn't I go through stages in the womb of my mother, infancy, adolescence? Yes, you did go through stages, but those stages or transformation or changes are still part of one continuous moment. It doesn't change that factor. And then as you get older, age creeps in, sickness and death. And then you go back to from whence you came. That's why the Bible says, from the dust of the ground you came, from the dust of the ground you shall return. That's talking about the physical body. But where does the soul go? Doesn't tell you that part, right? God breathed into the man the breath of life, and what? Man became a living soul. The soul never dies. It's eternal, okay? This is why the Egyptians were teaching the sciences of eternal life, because they believed they never died. They were immortal, right? This is why they did such rituals and burial rituals where they buried themselves with all their riches and golds, because they believed there was no different between this existence and that existence. It was all connected, right? They didn't look at it the way we look today. And this is why I'm trying to teach you guys now for the last several years. Once you understand everything in existence is one continuous moment, that's when the doors, the realms start to open up to you. Because this is what creation, and I didn't get to that part. We'll get to that. Not tonight. This is what it means when creation and existence becomes one, right? All things become connected. They're separate and have their own uniqueness, but when you connect them all together, it opens you up to a whole different realm. Okay? So, yeah, there's a lot to that. Hopefully that helps. I'm watching this time. Yes, the endocrine system and its proper functioning is important, not only for your chakras to activate. Usually, everybody should be knowledgeable. Each chakra is also in correlation to a certain organ in the body. So 9 out of 10 times, if you're having circulation problems, heart problems, liver, kidney, that's usually has a connection to a certain chakra system, right? So we do need to understand the importance of the endocrine system and our spirituality and how it affects it. The central nervous system is critical and key to the growth of your spirituality. All those things are very important and critical, and they're in depth for you to understand so you can know yourself, right? And this is how you work on yourself on this path of self-mastery. So that's important, right? Ultra Ancient says, Hall notes, man. Listen, man. Let me tell you something. I mean, the 80s was big. It's crazy. I think I told you this. I mentioned this, guys. There's a Facebook page called Everything 80s, I think it's called. It's fucking cool. I mean, they post everything from, I mean, I'm born in 71, but obviously, you know, my memory of the 70s is very vague. It's late 70s, I remember a little bit. But obviously, my young childhood, 80s kid, growing up in the 80s. And this channel does a phenomenal job of bringing everything from that period to life, from the mongoose bikes, Nestle Quick, board games, the music. It's just crazy. They do a phenomenal job. And I post that shit sometimes just for fun. But Hall & Oates, man, they were one of those top pop bands in the 80s. I don't give a fuck what your opinion is of Boy George. Boy George could sing his ass off. You go back and listen to them Culture Club albums, those are classics. So I found myself recently in the mood of listening to a lot of 80s pop music from that era. But Hall & Oates had a lot of R&B soul flavor to them. I mean, I never realized, I mean, I did, but I didn't. As I recently was going through their catalog in the gym while I was exercising, they had some hits, man. You know a song is a hit when you haven't heard them for a while, but you know every word to the song. I'm literally listening to the song and it's all coming back. I'm like, holy shit, I know every fucking word to this song. But yeah, they put out a lot of bangers, man, a lot of classics, man. But yeah, recently I was listening to that Culture Club. I was listening to Journey, The Police, right? Rush, and then I all of a sudden shifted today to Force MDs, Troop, Guy. I mean, it's just how it is. That's how the spirits are sometimes. Like this is all music from that Ready for the World. I was listening to some Ready for the World today, which, man, that's some baby making music right there, man. If you got, oof, that goddamn, my God, that album, classic. A lot of shit I remember from Ready for the World album. All right. But yeah. Oh yeah, the war babies. I remember that. It's funny you bring that up because I got the Amazon app. It's not on, you can't find it on any of their albums. And She's Gone was erased from some of their albums, which that's a classic too. You can find it. It's crazy because you can find it individually as a single, but it's for whatever reason it's blacked out on their catalog, on their albums, and that song isn't even listed. It's funny you bring that up. Trap music is the attack of the clones. Listen, it making this youth lethargic and dumb. It's the ibidi dibbidi doo, boopidi boopidi bop, shibbidi ibidi boo. It's like it's slowing down their intellect. It's making them lethargic. Look, I get it. And look, you can say, Baniti, you're an old school cat, right? You're sounding like an old school head hating on the newer generation. No, I'm not. Okay, because there are some artists out there like Kendrick Lamar. There's a few, J. Cole, right? I can connect with because they're more in line with the current of the type of music I listen to. So that's not necessarily true. I just can't listen to that crap music, aka trap music. That shit is straight trash, and it's mentally destroying, killing the youth and making them lethargic and dumb. Look, we talked about on the last Hip Hop the Cult show. It was crazy. You had iconic. This goes to show you how the youth has no knowledge of the history of the culture. I don't even want to call that hip hop or rap music because it's not. It's crap music is what I like to call it. But recently at the Hot 97 Music Fest, where I used to go to back in the day, I haven't been to one of them in years, but that used to be a big thing in New York. But that's changed now because now you got youth going to that listen to that crap music. Well, recently Redman and Method Man and Redman performed, and they had the audacity to boo these dudes. It was crazy. And Method Man afterwards did an interview and he explained it. He didn't take it personally. He said it's changing. That venue is not what it used to be. It's attracting people who listen to that trap music, where that's not how that venue used to be. But what it shows me too is that it's a different generation in the sense they have no knowledge of the culture. They have no history. These are pioneers. You wouldn't boo. If you knew who Red and Method Man was, you wouldn't boo them. That's like booing Rakim. And to me, Redman, Method Man, Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, KRS-One, they could put bars on any of these rappers and put them to shame. And KRS-One has only gotten better with time. He's still putting out music. Big Daddy Kane still putting out music. Sounds phenomenal. They don't age in their sound, and they're able to adapt to the times.
That's true legends. That's legendary shit. These trap, what's that one now who all her ticket sales, they canceling all shows because nobody's buying it. That was that Sexy Red. I mean, what you call Baby Red, whatever the fucking name is. Nobody, after a while, that shit dies out. There's no longevity in that shit. Just standing up there looking like a skank skeezer, just yelling out some stupid shit. How far you think that's going to get you? Yeah, it's going to be hot for a quick minute, but over time, it's not going to last. And now I'm seeing all these things where a lot of shows being canceled on her tour. Who the fuck wants to spend money to see some skanky ass heifer who looks like she don't wash her ass just yell out some old hoochie mama shit? I can't even tell you any one of her songs because I don't know. I mean, I see her in clips. I see her on YouTube. I see her when I flip through channels. It's just like people listening to this shit. Like, I can't even understand a word that they saying. Even the other dude that has been so successful. Hey, look, get your money. I'm not trying to hate the game. Get your money, dude. But like, how could anybody understand that dude future? How could this dude sell all the way? Like, he sound like he got Down syndrome when he raps. I'm sorry. Okay, call it being an old school hating. It's just, I just can't connect with it, and it's kind of scary that the youth is just really tapping into this shit. And then you got all these dudes. They're not even rapping. They're singing. They're sing along. Like, look. Even when you look at and this is the type of shit we talk about on a esoterical occult rap show. Like, I don't consider Drake rap music. It's like he created his own genre. It's like, it's not bad music. I'm not going to front. I've listened to some Drake tracks, but I don't really consider a lot of his music hip hop. There are some tracks where he's rapping, but then there's that sing along R&B / I don't know what the fuck you call it. But you got to understand when you go back into the origins of hip hop and the culture. For those that were there, I'm talking about for those that were there, I was there with many others with the emergence of when this first came on the scene. I'm talking about early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. 81, 82 is probably when the breakdance era starts to come in. That's my origins in this. I saw it all from that point. And what it was intended to be is most definitely what it is not now. Never thought I'd see a day where rappers were wearing dresses, tight ass pants, and painting their fingernails. That's not hip hop. I'm sorry. You can't sell that to me. Don't sell me no bullshit. It's a different generation. You got to understand. Fuck that. The elders never intended it to be that. You cannot sell that to me in any shape, form, or fashion. If you like that shit, just say you like it. I don't respect any rapper that wears a dress and paints his nails. Don't even do him the service of calling him a rapper. Okay? Please don't do that. That's not hip hop. Okay, there's rappers and there's MCs. Okay, totally different. But that's a whole nother show. What else we got? It's not music. You're right. And that's good to see a young head like Joel Thompson. He don't even care for it. I got my son's 30. He don't listen to that shit. Yeah, the New Jack Swing era. Yeah, Rex and Effect, Guy. That's what was considered the New Jack era. The beats, K7, right? All those groups, man. You had the New Jack Swing era in the early 90s that was hot for a few years. Rupert Fellows says, yeah, the Kabbalion. I always tell that's a great book to begin with. Many of you have emailed me over the years. What's a good book to begin with? Not the Kabbalah, for those listening. Look at it in the chat. Kabbalion, which is the 7 Hermetic Principles of Tahuti. The Kabbalion by the 3 Initiates is an occult classic. That's a great place to start. And also a lot of the stuff we're talking about tonight will help give you more insight to that. That's one of the books I always suggest people to, when people say, what's a good book to start out with? Many of you over the years know that's one of the first books I tell you to read. Diego Singleton, Phil Collins. Oh yeah, Genesis, Phil Collins. Man, Phil Collins, that In the Air Tonight will never get old. Classic. Genesis. You know what album was slept on? Some of you might be aware. So I'm gonna throw you a jewel. Phil Collins did I think it was 3 tracks on there. The Roof is Leaking. Secret Policeman's Other Ball. It's an album most people don't know about. And it was various different artists on it. It was The Police, Phil Collins, a few other artists I can't remember off name, but I always remember Phil's tracks on there. That's some Phil. That's like some Phil Collins' work that is not really talked about. Secret Policemen's of the Ball. Google that. But Phil was awesome. And even some of his pop ballads he put out in the 80s, right? Classics. I mean, he had the love ballad breakup songs in the 80s, right? How could you just walk away from me? Remember that jam? I forgot the name of it, but I hear the whole words in my. But Phil was the man. I mean, Phil put out some classics in the 80s, man. And that we always correlate In the Air Tonight with the Miami Vice show, right? The Miami Vice show made that song even more popular than it was because they used that as their theme song in the very beginning for a while. I know it was the first couple of seasons or on the first couple of shows, but that song became synonymous with Miami Vice. And if you know the story behind that song is deep. He watched somebody drown because he couldn't swim, right? That song is deep if you read why he wrote that song. And if you ever heard him talk about it in interviews, it's deep. Yeah, Phil was talented, is talented, I should say. Yes, you once the pineal is awakened, this is why I tell people, though, when people say their crown chakra is open, you have to start from the root and work your way up. It's funny to me how some people will say their crown chakra, they think their crown chakra is open when the pineal is shut or closed, or not closed, but obstructed, right? And sometimes the gateway to that, the throat chakra, sometimes the blockage starts there, where it could be creating or preventing the aforementioned to happen. Okay, what else we got? Try to go through a few more. I'm getting to that point where I have to wrap this up soon. Child of disobedience. The email is going right on the bottom of the screen. Look at the ticker. And it's also in the description box of the video. KHNUM19@gmail.com. You'll see it on the ticker right there. It's going across right now if you look at the bottom. And it's also in the description box of all my YouTube videos. That's where you'll find it, okay, if you forget. All right? Yeah, Apocalypto and Thanos and Darkseid, all of those so-called villains in all of those movies, Darth Vader, all of them. Like the story of Darth Vader is deep as you go, because as you know, the Star Wars trilogy is taking you back. As you go through the sequels, then you get to the prequels, it takes you back and then it brings you forward. It's the story of Darth Vader is the story of you. It's the internal battle within where Anakin Skywalker thought he was doing the right thing by being a do-gooder. And then he came to the realization that you needed the dark side. Luke finds this out later, right? And the one that came out a couple before the last two, he finds out what his father went through. He experiences it similar in one of the more recent movies, that he says something in there when the girl finds him living as a hermit in the mountains. He says he's no longer exclusively a Jedi. He's none of those things because he came to the realization, quote unquote, you need some of the force from the dark side in order to piece this all together. Right? And they're trying to show you it's not about dark or light. And that's what Lucifer represents, is the harmonization of darkness and light. He embodies light and darkness simultaneously. That's why they call him the light bearer. And we're not talking again about that luminous light. We're talking about the intellect. Yeah, you can't get sucked into the power tricks. Yes, I have worked with archangels, not anymore in the lighter sense of the word. I work with some of these archangels now. I mean, I don't really work with the Shempharash or the 72 angels of the lesser name. Not too much of that anymore, but some other who would be classified in that category, like Samael, etc. Yes, but more in an occult perspective, not really from a lighter perspective, no. What else we got? Yeah, sci-fi movies do. They refer to this as the Earth plane. You're right. I noticed that. Yeah, and that's exactly. We never looked at it on a second-hand clock, why they called it seconds, not firsts. Think about it. Why does 60 seconds make up a minute? Why is it not called 60 firsts? Because they're calculating the second point they're counting the talk, not the, I mean, they're counting the tick, but not the space in between the tick and the tock. So there's a tick, space, tock. So all they're calculating is the tick and the tock, right? But really it would be space first or nothingness, then tick. Then it would be space, tock. Then that pattern keeps repeating itself, right? These beings that exist outside of person, place, and thing, as I told you guys before, they exist between the tick and the tock, cyclical time. You'll never connect with them when you're just connecting with linear time, because their existence vibrates beyond what we're calling linear time. Okay? And then they fuck you up later in Revelation. Say, I'm the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and end. And you get all pious and deep. And oh, that's so deep and spiritual. No, it's not. It's keeping you under a spell of illusion. Okay? Ain't nothing deep about that shit. Okay? Oh, shit. If we go in a circle around the sun, why 360 days, not 360? Exactly. There's another point. Right? The mathematics do not equate. Right? Whether you're calculating that, the amount of days in a year, the months in a year, the minutes in a seconds in a minute, minutes in an hour, etc. It just doesn't add up. So now the other question posed is, quote unquote, technically, what year are we really in? Is it really 2024? You'd have to say no. Okay. What else we got? That's right. If the lights go out, they're still the now. 100%. That was my point. 100%. That never changes. Yeah. Soul, the light, and all that circles through all the door. That is all there is now, forever as a door is all. That's all one. Right. It always reminds me, I told you guys this before. If you ever get a chance to go to Macon, Georgia, there's a place called Ocmulgee Mound. It's a preserved Native American site of a lot of the Mississippian tribes like the Choctaw, the Creeks, Seminoles, and they've preserved their ritual temple, the funeral mounds, the burial mound. I've gone inside the temple. I've taken pictures. They got a museum, and then they have a theater where they have a whole history on the site. It's a very spiritual place. I've bought some Native American relics there, and I've charged them. I've done a ritual on the funeral mound there when I was traveling with people back. Last time I was there was 2017, I believe it was. But a very powerful place. You could tap into a lot of the Native American spirits there. I mean, place gives me chills in a good way. I love going there when I have the chance. But when you come through the entrance, if you've ever been there, some of you have been there, you can attest to what I'm about to tell you. There's a sign. It always stood in my brain. The first time I ever went there was 1998. And I've probably been to Ocmulgee Mound, I would probably say maybe 8 or 9 times, maybe a little bit more. It could be 10 times or whatever. I've been there quite a few times. And I could hear the voices of the Native American spirits. And every time I go through, there's a sign as you're coming up the main road. It says all things are connected. And it has one of the symbols of the great birds that's connected with the tribes of that area. And then posed upon that, it says those words. I always hear, and that's always resonated in my ear. Sometimes from the first moment I set foot on that land in 1998, I could just be sleeping and I'll hear like the voice of an Indian chief, because I have an Indian chief. One of my spirit guides is an Indian chief that came to me years ago through work with my godmother when I was working with her. But anyway, that's another story. But it'll just out of nowhere, I'll just hear that resonate. I mean, this has been going on since 1998. And it's like a tuning fork is a reminder, all things are connected. Okay. They have their separate properties, but yet they're connected. Okay. Your Hall Notes got some bangers, no doubt. What else we got? Yeah, the whole early MTV, when MTV actually played music videos. I don't know why they call it music television anymore, because it's not. That was when MTV was on in the 80s and when it first came in the scene. It was 24 hours a day of music videos. Not no more. Remember the thing, I want my MTV, right? That used to be the theme song, and it was just constant music videos. Not no more. I don't even know why they call it that. They should change it. Alice Cooper, wow, you going? Yeah, he's an interesting individual. I listened to some of his music. Never was huge into Alice Cooper, not for any particular reason. Just Didn't get into it huge. Yeah, listen, the trap music. Listen, you're gonna laugh about the trap music story. So, at my company, I hired a new employee. It's a younger dude, young brother. So we're working in the warehouse, and he says, "Hey, you mind if I play some music?" I said, "Yeah, no, go ahead." I knew what he was gonna play though. I kind of sensed. Man, he put on that shit, and all I heard was sound like one continuous song. Oh, everything was on auto tune and mumbling. I said, "Yo, look, dude." After 30 minutes, I said, "Listen, man, I can only give you 30 minutes of that, but that was rough. We're gonna have to put something on that everybody wants to hear because that, yeah, no problem." Awful. It sounded like one continuous song. I couldn't even tell the difference between each song. It was so bad. All I heard was, I don't even know who it was, what he was playing. It just sounded like some dude mumbling, whining, and crying. It was horrible. What else we got? Yeah, more. That's what I'm saying. These do the due diligence of the culture. They don't. And this is the problem with this generation, and this is why where these kids are turning out like they're turning out because nobody's educating them properly. And it's a different generation. These kids are warriors. They're very rebellious by nature, right? Which is a good thing and a bad thing simultaneously, but they're not being schooled on certain aspects of things, right? Yeah, you can't shit on the pioneers because these mumble rappers wouldn't be around if it wasn't for the pioneers that laid the groundwork. Look, we talk about on Hip Hop and Culture, so go look at and go to show you because people don't know the history. Go look at a lot of the artists that first came out in the 70s and 80s. It was obvious they were influenced by Parliament and the P-Funk movement because you look at groups like Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious Five. You look at Africa Bambaataa, they look like they were members of George Clinton in Parliament, right? So that's not really what hip hop is about anymore. So I get about change and evolving, but there's a changing and evolving for the better and changing and evolving for the worse. So, I mean, hip hop isn't about wearing spike bracelets anymore and rabbit's foot hanging from your waist and color, because that's what the first groups were wearing, right? Know the history, know the culture, right? But they never intended it to be what it is now. They always intended it to evolve, grow, and change, but for the better. But look how it evolved. I'm using that example. Look how it evolved from that short period of the late 70s to early 80s. And then when you get into the mid to late 80s, look at how it really transitioned. And there was a huge boom and surge in it. You had so much growth and creativity in hip hop at that time where every group had their own style. They all didn't sound the same. You had party rappers like Heavy D and the Boys, Kwame, Slick Rick, Dougie Fresh. You had political rappers like Public Enemy, Positively Black, conscious rappers like Brand Nubian, right? Dropping jewels and signs, King Son. You had the whole conscious movement with the Native Tongues family. Tribe Called Quest, Moni Love, Queen Latifah, the Jungle Brothers, right? All of them were distinct in their own. They didn't sound the same. Then you had gangster rappers like NWA, etc. Every rapper had their own style. Now, these motherfuckers all sound the same. Shibbity-doobity-boo. Shibbity-doobity-ba. It's auto-tune, mumbling, and jibber-jabber. They all sound the fucking same. You can't tell any of them apart. Okay? And then you got all the other ones that want to try to be Drake. That's like everybody in the NBA wants to shoot threes and be Steph. You can't. It's just the way it is. But you cannot tell me there was more diversity in hip hop in the 80s and 90s. Then you had the boom bap era in the 90s. That the whole nother era where it changed, transformation and growth. And then I think, in my opinion, where it started to all go downhill was, I want to say late 2000s as we start maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago. Some good early 2000 stuff, but then, yeah, it's just started, in my opinion, that's when shit has started to hit the fan. And then when the trap shit came on the scene, yeah, it took it to a whole nother level of shit. Yeah, Redman and Method Man. How can you boo them? I mean, if you didn't understand, look, that's because they booed them because they weren't doing the oopity boopity boo. They weren't, walking out, making it rain with their pants hanging off their ass, and and come on, man, don't get me started on that. Yeah, man, I'm telling you. Oh shit, it jumped on me. Eric should relax on Future. I'll try. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. What else we got? Yeah, Red Fox, man. And like I say, just think about comedians like Red Fox, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, Paul Mooney. Can you imagine them doing stand up in this era? They'd be culture canceled in a minute. Everybody's so sensitive. I'm gonna get you, sucker. Yeah, on Sanford and Son classic. My daughter came in last night talking shit about eating one rib. Oh, Cheap Pete. That's Cheap Pete from the movie I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. That shit is classic. Wait, how much is it for one rib? Puts his hands out. How much is it for a soda? 50 cents. How much is it without the cups? Pour it in my hands. That I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker is classic. KRS One, Jack of Spades. Oh man, I watched I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. I still got the DVD. I've watched that movie. I don't know how many. I actually saw it in the movie theater when it first came out. But that movie, Keenan Ivory Wayans, was funny as shit in there. Man, see, that's man. Look, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Hollywood Shuffle with Robert Townsend. That's another classic. Don't drink. Don't be a menace to society while sipping and drinking your juice in the hood. The Wayans Brothers, classic. Those are some of my favorite spoof movies. I got all those DVDs. I'll pop them in once in a while just to watch them. But I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Hollywood Shuffle with Robert Townsend. If you haven't seen that, get that. That's a good ass movie. With Jerry Curl, remember Jerry Curl in there when they steal his activator? Man, that's what movies was good, man. What else we got? Pops took me to a Phil Collins concert, Genesis. Yeah, Genesis slaps hard, man. No joke. Now, what Phil did was unique. Remember, Phil played drums. It's hard to play drums and be lead vocals. It's because drums is a little different than playing guitar, in my opinion. I think it's harder to be doing vocals while you're playing drums, because I only say that because the drum in songs is the foundation of the track. And everything is built around the track. So when you lose that foundation, you essentially could lose the track. Now, when you're playing bass and guitar, you've seen a lot of groups where the bassist and the guitarist can do vocals or be the lead singer, which I'm not saying that that's easy either. I mean, it's not, but I think it's harder to be a drummer and have to also focus on doing lead vocals. And that was a hard thing to do. And Phil was talented at it. Yeah, Easy Lover is a classic. That was what's his name? He did Easy Lover with, what's the brother's name? From, what you call it? God damn. From Earth, Wind, and Fire. Can't think of his name. I'm drawing a blank. But Easy Lover was an 80s classic, man. Dire Straits, right. They did the theme song. They were the ones that did the MTV. Couldn't think of their name. Dire Straits. What else we got? What's going on, Louis? Burn a blessing. Can't take it no more. Oh yeah, Tribe Called Quest. Oh, Gangstar, classic. DJ Premier, one of the best producers in hip hop. Period. Still out there doing shit. X-Clan. I was a little disappointed in X-Clan. Some shit I found out afterwards about them. I ain't gonna get into it. I actually ran into Professor years ago in New York in the early 90s at the Hempstead bus terminal in Nassau County in New York. I had a conversation with him for about 20 minutes. Yeah, Cameron's got a podcast with Mace. He still does some freestyle shit. But the Diplomats and 2 Diplomat albums, I mean, that's some real straight New York shit, though. It's just like listening to a genre from a certain region. But Diplomats is straight uptown, hardcore New York hip hop music. Yeah, the lingo, if you're not really from that area, you may not understand. I mean, that's as New York as you can get. Them 2 Diplomat albums, Uptown. That's that whole Harlem swag and the whole the Uptown lingo that they use because that's where they're all from. But them Diplomat albums are classic. I love the beats on them Diplomat albums. They're hard. Them beats hit hard. Both of those albums, man. I wish they would come out with another Diplomats album, to be honest with you. I like Cameron's solo joints too. Cameron's funny too. On some of his solo albums, he put some funny ass skits in between the music. But them Diplomat albums, to me, I mean, me being, obviously being a New Yorker, I love that shit. Them beats hit them Diplomat beats were hard, man. I mean, you could feel that shit. I used to crank that shit in my car. I remember when that first Diplomat album came out in the early 2000s. Man, I had some. I don't know what size speakers they were, but I had an Oldsmobile. I think it was Oldsmobile 98. And man, I had the box in the back. But, back in the day when we were, the systems was a big thing. I used to be into that. I was fucking around with systems all the time. I had to have some hitting shit in the back of the trunk. And man, them goddamn Diplomat beats, boy, had the whole trunk shaking. Yeah, man. Yeah, it went from boom bap to boo boo. Pretty much. From boo boo to doo doo. It's sad, man. There's hope. There's still, there's still hope because you got artists again like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole. Man, what's them dudes? Oh, man. It's that group. They're from different places. Oh, man, they're really good. It's a group of 5. I can't think of their name, man. I mean, look, it's not all for naught. There's some good groups out there still. So there's always hope, right? And then with a lot of these legends still now coming back, a lot of them are coming back, a lot of them are touring. So I got hope. Maybe that's just me being positive. I don't know. Pour it in my hand. That Cheap Pete, Chris Rock. That man, that was one of them. He actually did that character on Saturday Night Live too, which some people, if you remember, he briefly was one of the members of the Saturday Night Live cast, and that's where he first introduced that character. But at that time, then he did that movie around that time, classic. Oh, Hollywood Shuffle's classic, man. Come on, man. Keenan Ivory Wayne's Jerry Curl. That is one of the funniest fucking characters ever, man. And Robert Townsend was a talented dude, man. He was a talented dude. He's got some specials he did in the 80s. You could still find some comedy specials. They were good. And then obviously he did some movies, The 5 Heartbeats, which was a classic. See, Janika, I don't really do the invoking or banishing with the inverted pentagram or the lesser the lesser ritual, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. Now, traditionally, when you do that, the mainstream aspect of it, the points of where you start, to me, when we're doing it in the occult, right? We always start from the left corner to your left. And we always draw the pentagram from that way, right? Now, when you're drawing into you, right, there's the inverted. When you're drawing the inverted, you start from the left and work your way to the right. When you're drawing away, it's from the right to the left. It's a little bit different, but we don't look at it as banishing. As I said earlier, you can only manipulate energy. You don't banish energy. It doesn't go anywhere. So in essence, I'm saying that it doesn't really matter what point you're starting from. It's more important what you're doing. But when we're drawing the pentagram, right, we'll start from the bottom and go to the left point up and then work our way that way, right? Because what we're trying to do whether it's casting a hermetic circle, whether you're using, say, a draconian ritual, you are invoking and you're drawing energy into your space because you start to learn that all energy is productive and all energy is needed, regardless of what you're labeling it, good, bad, negative, or positive. As I said before, a magician's goal is to know how to work with all varying vibrational degrees of energy. They just have to identify what it is they need for a working that they're doing. Is this a working of destruction? Is this a dark work of sorcery? Is this more of a lighter work? Right? But when you're calling the four corners, saying the draconian opening ritual, right, you're calling all of these quote unquote adversarial forces that are needed because everything is contained in that. So the banishing ritual, lesson banishing ritual, the pentagram per se that's used in OTO, which they use that in a lot of their ritual work, and you're invoking all the archangels and I don't fuck with any of that stuff, right? So in essence, to me, it doesn't really matter. That may not be the answer that you wanted to hear, but if you look at it as being important of where you start and begin, that's if you're still, coming from that perspective that you use it traditionally, right? That's all. Yeah, Dipset, but man, I just wish they would, Jules Santana, he's still doing stuff, but I just wish they would all get back together. Him, Jim, them. We got Jules Santana, Cameron, Jim Jones, right? Man, the Diplomats that was the shit. Yes, that's very valid. I've been led lately to not close my circle. So, right. It's like when you cast a hermetic circle, right? You don't close the circle, right? When you're sweeping the above and the below, what you're doing is, people think that's closing the circle. No, what you're actually doing is I'll use the casting the 8-pointed star chaos is what you're doing when you're casting a hermetic circle. So what you're doing when you're sweeping the above and the below, right? People think that is closing a circle like in other rituals. No, the sweeping the above and the below is the merging of both of those energies, what we're calling light and darkness. Because when you're casting a hermetic circle, you're connecting with the triad of light, and then you're connecting with the triad of darkness. So the sweeping of the above and below is the merging of light, what we're calling lighter energies or lighter forces, and darker forces of energy. So when you're casting the hermetic circle which really creates an 8-pointed star of chaos, because you go into all the 8 points, and when you're taking all that chaos and merging it, together, you're creating the harmonization of what we're calling light and darkness, because that's what chaos is, in essence, right? So, yeah. But in traditional systems, yeah, they teach you to close the circle, right? That's from traditional witchcraft. And look, I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. I'm saying what we do, we're beyond that right now. I'm not telling anybody if you practice witchcraft on that level, that's fine if it works for you. Phil, I think I do remember you, Phil. You probably don't remember me, but I appreciate the help you gave me from the consultation we did a while back. I just got the Dark Light Consciousness book you read. It's also helping me get over race. Cool. That's awesome. Awesome. Glad to hear that. All right. I'm going to stop it here. It's getting late. It's midnight. I tried to get to most of your comments. I have more I want to get to in this. I will do a second part on this. Well, I don't know what I'll call it. Maybe I'll just call it part 2 to this. There's more. I just didn't have the time to get into it. I always think I can get through all of it. I can't. We'll elaborate more on this. I hope this video, hopefully it helped out. Again, if you need to reach out to me, the conference, Patreon page, all that information, readings, consultations, how to contact me. We got class tomorrow for those that are on the Patreon page. I don't even know what class we're doing tomorrow. Hold on. I mentioned it earlier. For those that are on the Patreon page, I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Necromancy and Dark Witchcraft class number 7, 3:30 Eastern time. If you're a Patreon member, you will be with me tomorrow in that class. You have to be a tier 3 member and up. I would encourage people, if you want to get in on the classes that I do live on Patreon, go to the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, going right on the bottom of the screen. Join tier 3. Tier 3 is $25 a month, and you're getting access to hundreds of classes. Coast Contra, thank you. That's the group. That's another group. That's the group when I was saying a few minutes ago, I couldn't think of the name. They're phenomenal. Man, and it's crazy because I drew a blank. I was listening to them about 3 weeks ago on Amazon. I got a lot of their music saved. They are a very talented group, Coast Contra. You can pull up some of their freestyles too on YouTube, where they had a few of them where they're just sitting down at a table flowing. It's amazing. So there's some hope, man. When you got groups like Coast Contra, J. Cole, again, Kendrick Lamar, there's some hope out there, right? And see, those are the groups I can listen to that new. So I want to sound like a grumpy old head. I do like some new groups. Yeah, Ross Cos, but he's not really new. Yeah. When you go to underground scene, like, there's a lot of great underground groups that don't get any recognition. I mean, I like a lot of those. I mean, shit. When we talk about what they're playing mainstream, that they're giving some type of publicity to, yeah, it's not a lot of them. But yeah, that's the way to get in on the classes. Go to the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, BANITI tier 3. All right. Other than that, that's going to do it for me. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Infernal blessings. We'll talk soon.